get back to some boring subjects.
Understand the risk to our country.
Freedom brings people together.
You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at WeAreLibertarians.com.
Welcome to the program. My name is Chris Spangle. It's so great to have you with us here today. And we are going to talk about crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin. Listener wrote in and asked for this show, so we always like to super serve the listener and their moms. So stay tuned. We're going to ask the question, what is a Bitcoin? And we're going to explain it to you like you're 5, because I don't get it. I've had 3 episodes explaining this to me, and I'm still losing money on crypto. So we're going to help you not blow your car payment on crypto after these messages.
Warning. This show is for adults by semi-adults, so the language is sometimes strong and offensive.
I don't know what I said.
Welcome to the Chris Spangle Show. Our goal is to help you sound smarter while talking to your friends. If you struggle to understand politics, we explain it from an independent libertarian point of view. With all of the irreverence it deserves, we toss out the screaming heads, put people before political parties, and give context to the news to make you think. Now, here's our host, Chris Spangle, a 15-year veteran of politics and media.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Chris Spangle. It's so great to have you here. If you want to know a little bit more about me, if you're new to the program, visit chris-spangle.com. Now, we start every show thanking our patrons, and you can join at joinwallplus.com, WAL+.com. And this is how we support the entire network. We have 13 shows on the We Are Libertarians network now, and it costs money, believe it or not, to do that. And we have a great set of supporters that have helped us grow. We're in another growth phase, leveling up to the next level in our effort to build a generational libertarian outlet like Reason or Cato, but in the podcasting space. And I'm so proud of all of our hosts. You can find all of their shows at WeAreLibertarians.com. And the backbone of that is our Patreon, which you can find at Join Wall Plus. You get all kinds of extras, like the entire archives, like 1,500 backed shows, where you can only get 400 in the public feed. It's all commercial free. And, you know, a little extra. Like I ribbed Gault right before the episode, and you don't want to miss that. Thank you especially to our $100 a month members, John Pasillo, Casey Feldposh, Lars Nordskog, Jake Edel, Matthew Durbin, Jeff Bennett, Rhinehold, Christy Avery, and Jason Doolittle. And I just sent a notice to all of those $100 a month folks that they're able to join our pool party. July 17th, we're having another wall pool party. It's going to be much more tame because there will be children there than the old days. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're just going to have to go back in the Wall Plus archives and listen, because it needs to be behind a paywall. And we just invited them to come on out because they're such important parts of this. Now, Gault, you have a little bit of a hum on your thing. You might turn down your audio a little bit. And so let's say hi to everybody as we introduce this episode. First and foremost, the William Riker of this ship, the number 2. He's a big number 2. It's Harry Price. How are you today, Harry?
I'm going good, and we're going to have to sit down and let you watch more Star Trek TNG because it's number 1, but that's okay. It's fine. We'll let that slide.
Yeah, sorry. I ran out of series. Like, we finished Blacklist. We finished Yellowstone. Now I'm like, well, now what am I going to watch? So I'm rewatching the original series. So Star Trek is better than Star Wars, definitively, right, Rhinehold?
I would have to say that that's not a topic I want to get into right now.
Yeah,
we only have so much time.
Oh no!
And this could end up with fistfights, and we know what happens, when we get fistfights going on walls.
Yes, we do, because Gault, who will be making public apologies shortly, is here. Chris Gault, one of the original hosts, him and Creighton helped. They were on episode 1 until episode 34 when they got in a fist fight, and then Chris Gault said, "It's me or Creighton," and I said, "Gault, it's time to go, buddy. I don't accept ultimatums. Get the F out." So, Gault, how are you today?
Great. I actually just saw Creighton last week at a wedding.
He was in town from New York. So it was pretty good to see him. It was like a little wall reunion there. Nick Taylor was there. I think he's been on the show before.
He has, yeah.
So, yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, Skulja says Gault is basically the equate version of Spangle. Look at him. He's got little ginger beard growing and his little Matt Welch glasses. So, Gault, how many shows have you been fired from on the We Are Libertarians network thus far?
All of them.
So there's the original.
All of them that I've been on.
There's the original We Are Libertarians. You got fired from that. Yep. There is. You did
Nearly Total Nonsense.
Nearly Total Nonsense with Peppers. That lasted one episode. You were the original co-host of the new show on the network, Enemy of My Enemy with Hody Johns, and he messaged me one day about a month ago and goes, "I've got to fire Chris." I go, I knew that was going to happen.
Hey, but we got it off the ground. I'm good at that.
Any others that you've tantrumed your way out of?
No. After a while, I always get invited back, so I'm sure I'll be back on Enemy of My Enemy one day.
Yeah, the problem with Gault is he has a pleasant, fun personality until you try to do a group project with him, and then you're just like, he's an asshole. Like 2% of the time, but that 2% of the time, like, you're so stubborn. You're just true Southern Indiana. I love you.
But do you want an A on the project? You invite me to your team.
Right.
I mean,
that's true.
You want a B, you kick me out.
And then our friend Vincent, I didn't ask you your last name. It's Vincent McRee.
Something like that.
Vincent McRee is here. He is big into crypto, and he's going to talk about that today. We have restarted the Facebook group by requests from many listeners. And you can find Harry's against this move. Frankly, I am too. The auto admin that Facebook makes you have is just deleting every post, so it's kind of pointless. But you can look that up. I'll put it in the show notes, the link. It's Not Walnuts. Now, I want to say, this is not a place to post fake news, memes, politics, libertarianism. Not Walnuts is a gardening forum where we talk about home and gardening tips, and it is not a libertarian podcast fan group, so just please be advised by that.
Bring your hose.
I got a great letter here, who just is from a new patron, and I wanted to read it to you to show you that not all libertarians come from the Republican Party. Believe it or not. I mean, for God's sake, look at Rhinehold and his hippie ass with his long hair and his boogaloo shirt. Like, you basically look like Jerry Garcia at this point. I
was going for the dude, but I'll take Jerry Garcia.
All right. Dear leader, I have been a Chris Spangle Show listener for over 5 years. Your show was an integral part of my shifting from progressivism to libertarianism. Thank you for not being afraid to recognize social inequalities and discuss left-leaning topics. You showed me that libertarianism offers more equitable solutions to social problems than statism, helped me see my place in this movement, and most importantly, stopped me from falling deeper into progressivism. Sorry to hear the lizard people kicked you off Facebook, but also good fucking riddance. FYI, I found your show through Google, searching for the best libertarian podcasts. And I found the Facebook page and still have the infamous Laws Are for Poor People meme saved on my computer. I really enjoyed your April 17th show, the one where we talk about the Libertarian Day of Service, Nildos. I wanted to echo Elliot's sentiment on mentoring. I think mentoring is one of the best laissez-faire strategies to create a more equitable and prosperous future. Like all libertarians, I am appalled by our education system and how little it prepares us to function as adults. I was going to sign up for the $5 a month Wall Plus membership, but really wanted to listen to the new podcast, History of Modern Politics. So take my $10, you greedy capitalist bastard. Keep owning the libs and neocons, Tim Merlino. Yes, we have posted the first episode of History of Modern Politics, which can be heard by Wall Plus patrons, like 9 months before it will be available on the public feed. It's not going to be public and free, aka ad-supported, until 2022, but you can hear the first episode. The second episode has been scheduled for the 1st, so every 1st and 15th. You're going to get an extra 2 episodes a month talking about history. If you love the World War I literally got a comment on YouTube about how great our World War I episode was. It's basically that, but for a whole series. Now, let's get into...
And it's with Matt, right? Matt Whitliff.
Matt Whitliff. You worked with Matt.
Yeah, if you guys don't know Matt Whitliff, definitely check out that podcast. He is one of the smartest minds in Indiana for sure when it comes to politics. I mean, he taught me a lot about running campaigns here. And I really respect that guy, and I'm really happy you're doing a show with him. You
should see the outline that we are growing between the two of us. It is every episode we've got like 50, 60, 70 episodes planned out, and we're a quarter of the way through, and it's like 7 pages each. So lots of great stuff. The reading lists and everything are worth it. If you don't want to join the Patreon because you don't want to support the entire We Are Libertarians network, which I don't know why you wouldn't, you can go to historyofmodernpolitics.com and sign up on that website now. So let's jump into what is crypto? What is Bitcoin? What exactly is that? Now, here's the problem with you nerds. And this has always been the Harry will always say, we should do this thing on the blockchain, and we should have this website. You should go to this thing and put this, and all you got to do is buy 5 computers, and then you hook it up to this network, and then you can start using the blockchain, and then your listeners will have 3 times the hardship of Facebook, and that it'll just work. And Gault, you too, like, we should just move everybody from Facebook to this blockchain social media that nobody uses, and as a marketer myself, I recognize the barriers to entry are often hard. So Gault sends me this fucking website last night to set up a crypto address. So basically you go on something and you type in, instead of like the long chain, VVN 54s, 72 characters to donate Bitcoin to We Are Libertarians, which you can do, by the way, at WeAreLibertarians.com/support. So apparently you type in WeAreLibertarians.Crypto, and then you can send it that way instead of typing out all those numbers. Well, I didn't totally get that. And so I'm like, he's like, it's only $40. So I'm halfway setting up this website thing, and there's like blog options, and it's not just $40. There's another $40. And then they go, oh, by the way, we need you to pay $30 worth of Ethereum for gas prices, which what the fuck is that? And before I know it, I'm $135 into this stupid thing when I thought it was going to be $40, and I am pissed. I'm like, I've kicked him off like 15 shows. I'm like ranting to my girlfriend. I'm like, this motherfucker is going to come on the show tomorrow and apologize to me. He is ruining everything as usual. It's like you're the sand in the vagina of WeAreLibertarians.com, and I appreciate you trying to help, but I was mad at you for it because it was confusing, and I am I'm like Spock, right? Like I'm half Vulcan, half normie. So I sort of understand what we're going to talk about today, but I'm also like busy, and I don't have time to spend an extra $300 for a blockchain website that I don't get what this does. And, this is the problem with your blockchain technology, Gault. First, I want a public apology for making me mad for trying to help me. And secondly, do you guys get why crypto and blockchain is so confusing? Because there's, every time I wanted to update the website, I had to, send a thing to something to get approved with a verification code, and there's, 3 steps to change the about section, and I'm just like, this is never going to catch on because it's annoying. First, go ahead and publicly apologize, and then second, explain, Gault, what I was doing, and do you recognize that people are really confused about this stuff, but they don't want to be?
Spangle, I am so sorry that it was a little too complex for you. I'm so sorry.
Did he just call me stupid?
And but I did send you 5 $5 back. So
you did, yeah,
because I tested it out. So
I said I need you to send me $5 to make sure that this dumb thing works. So before I say donate crypto via WeAreLibertarians.Crypto, it actually works, and it did. It went through. It was perfect, and my $5 is now worth $3.50. Thanks.
And I spent $3 to send that $5.
Now you know exactly how I feel, right? Like there's you get in, you love the promise of crypto, but then like there's always another step here where you're like, why is this costing me money, and why is this so complicated?
Yeah, I get why you think that. It's because Ethereum's not just money. Ethereum's not just money. It's also it's called smart contracts. So that's what you're doing on there is when you're getting a website, you're creating a contract with the blockchain that says you on that website. So it costs money to create those contracts, and that's what the gas fees are. So that's why there's some. Not all blockchains have those kind of fees, but Ethereum is very expensive.
Now, Vincent,
currently,
so Vincent,
very expensive.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you're an expert on blockchain and crypto, and what's your background?
Along with Gault, I mean, I've been around Bitcoin since it started, from the very beginning. For a long time, I was just a little, I guess, normie. Only watched Bitcoin, had no idea even Ethereum existed or anything like this, but constantly watched Bitcoin, watched it crash twice. And after that happened, it was on my radar. So this time, this is round 3, and I saw it bump up back in around October of last year, and I got balls deep in November. So much so that I found a common collective of people thinking the same thing and having the same, I guess, eyes on the future. And we all started a community. That at the time was called Alt Street Bets, which was, a little bit of a play on Wall Street Bets, which was booming at the time because of GME. I mean, an expert is a strong word. I would like to say that I'm adept because I've just been balls deep this long, 7 months. I've had a lot of experts, very smart people come in that I've learned from, grabbed a little bit of information from. And I'd say at this point, after about 7 months, I can look at a chart, and I mean, granted, this is all past data and trends and all that, but I can look at technicals. I can see the chance of something happening tomorrow. I can actually make moves like marginal trading, leveraging it. So I'm so confident that tomorrow this coin's going to go up that I'm going to buy this coin at a leveraged rate of times 10. So say I put in $1,000, I'm going to bet that $1,000 at a weighted bet of $10,000. So say that $1,000 goes up 5%. I multiply that by 10 because it's a weighted bet, and now that's 50% of gains that I can have if I stop right now. Of course, it's all unrealized.
So we don't bury the lead too much. Like, explain like margin and leveraging, please.
Yeah. So it's the same thing in stock trading, in which you will take. Obviously, the whole point of margin trading is to trade at a level that you are not. Say you only had $1,000, but you don't believe all your trades can be very fruitful to someone, say, with $10,000. You can make a hedged bet and multiply the bet that you've put down by whatever weight or leverage that you're going for. The only thing is every percent that moves, say 1%, is multiplied by that weighted leverage. So again, if you put in $1,000, you are playing with $10,000. You still have to give that $9,000 back at the end of the day. But the main difference between crypto and stocks in margin trading is, and this actually kind of explains the whole GME or GameStop fiasco, is in stocks, when you margin trade, you must pick a date. You must pick a date in which you are going to either return the shares back if you're shorting stuff, or call your bet. In crypto, this is perpetual. It could go on forever. There's a little bit of funding that you need to do, but if you have enough piece of the pot, you could theoretically hold a bet on the future for months on end, as long as you don't get liquidated. And so the liquidation is, so you had the $1,000, you turned it into $10,000. Now, usually there's a margin ratio, a ratio that you cannot go under, or they will take everything that you have. So if you made an isolated bet, meaning that you made a trade and everything that's in the trade is the only thing that can be lost, then your margin is much higher. So usually a circumstance of, say we made our 10 times bet with $1,000, we got $10,000 to play with, and it goes down 5%. Most exchanges would actually liquidate you at this point, and that means that they would take even the other 50% of the bet that you had.
So let me stop you there. So because I don't want to get too in the weeds here yet.
Yeah. This is a little bit
right. So
complex
it is
off the bat. Go ahead.
And I think this is so maybe we should this is the problem is people treat crypto like it is an investment or it is a stock, and it's talked about that way. Like I think of Bitcoin and Maker in terms of how much money I have in it. Whereas when I'm buying that website last night, Ethereum is used as it is currency, right? Like I'm trading Ethereum.
There's actually two things here. There's a currency and there's a blockchain.
All right, let's start with the blockchain. Explain the blockchain to me I don't know what you're talking about.
So the blockchain is the tech that has everybody hyped over the future. The blockchain is essentially, if I were to simplify it, it would be next-gen internet. It is basically the internet. It's just ran a different way. It's a giant conglomerate of computers running algorithms, processing transactions. At the end of the day, to understand blockchain the best is to take a step back and look at what we're already using. So for our debit cards and our credit cards, we swipe on a transaction, and that goes into a huge process of about can be 10 to 13 different companies. And the reason for this is to create trust for us. These companies go out, they grab our identity, they verify so many different things to verify who we are, how much money we have, whether or not we're able to spend that money, follow all these regulations.
So all those annoying stop signs and email verification codes and all that stuff was security for my protection, and the blockchain is built to be a lot more secure.
Essentially, so basically with the credit card, debit card, you swipe your card, the middleman go look through all this stuff, they do all the approving that they need to do, and 3 days later, you have a settlement in your bank account. Now, if you wanted to do something, say, a little bit crazier, you wanted to send some money to a different country, well, you got to go through all the same process. It might take a little bit longer now, but they're going to take 10-20% of that cut just to move it there. Now, blockchain, the whole point of blockchain is getting rid of that middleman. Instead, it's going to be what's called P2P or peer-to-peer, in which our transactions, say you mowed my lawn and I want to give you $5, I don't need to send this through 13 companies to give to you, which is, one, protecting my identity. Two, it's protecting arguably my wealth that I have, because I'm not going to take such a cut out of that. We're not going to talk about Ethereum right now because it's a special case. But that at the basic level is the ultimate goal here. The blockchain can replace, it is just a giant public ledger. So every transaction is marked and it's publicly available. Anyone could audit. There's no third parties, no one to pay off. Don't have to get rid of your identity or give it up. Because, think about it. Think about Target. What happened to Target? Target had a facility server, right? And that was just a server for them to just look at their air conditioning and stuff and make sure the temperature was working. Well, people hacked into that and bridged from that little facility server into their main server, which had all their credit card transactions, which, because they had stolen all of our identity with all these transactions, you were at risk if you made one transaction within the last 5 years.
Right, because I had done business with Target, I'd given them my credit card information, and I had swiped it. They had that, and so they store it, as opposed to blockchain, where is it anonymous? and it's stored? Because I mean, the thing about the thing when I put my email in last night, they're like, if you put your email into here, it's never coming out of the blockchain, and you better make sure it's a good email that, so.
That's not true in the sense of blockchain doesn't need a lot of this information. It doesn't need to know who you are, or what we call KYC, which is knowing your customer. Any U.S. bank, or I'm going to argue that any bank in the whole world, must follow regulation to know who you are. And that is the biggest requirement that is not needed in blockchain at all. In order for me to send something to you, I just need your wallet address, which your wallet itself, now not to be confused with an exchange like Coinbase or Binance, the wallet itself is essentially a bank. It is holding your funds. That's the entire point of it. But it has no tie to you or who you are. It doesn't need your email. It doesn't need your name. Doesn't need your phone number. Doesn't need any kind of like what street you lived on when you're in first grade. There's not much identity to steal. But, if you did enough work, you could potentially find out who someone was. So every transaction I make goes onto the public ledger. You can find my wallet and see all the transactions that I've made. Now, if you put your work in and you see all these transactions and all ties back, and it's speculative. Maybe this might be me. But at the end of the day, you don't know, and maybe I gave that wallet away.
Okay, so... All right, let's continue on what is the blockchain, and let's have everybody else weigh in. What is and that was a very simple way to explain it, but what is another way to explain what blockchain is that the average person
I got another
will?
one.
Yeah, let's have everybody weigh in, then we'll come back to you, and then
okay.
So Gault, Rhinehold, Harry, go ahead, Gault.
One way I think that libertarians will understand it, because this is a libertarian show, is. We look at markets and how the government is involved, and how that always gets in the way of innovation and progress, right, in every market. Think about the finance market for a moment, and how that's set up, and how regulated and how controlled that market is, with money and banks and payment processors and the entire market of finance. And then crypto is decentralizing that. There's no central authority. It is the same thing. It has all of those pieces. It has payment processors. It has store wallets that are like banks. It has centralized exchanges to let you move it around. But it's decentralized. I mean, in modern times, it's really the greatest example of a libertarian marketplace, of a free marketplace.
So all right. That's a great way to explain it. So, there's no Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. There's no Goldman Sachs. If I were to explain the consumer banking industry in a simple way, I'd say there's the Federal Reserve and Congress, which manage the U.S. dollar, which is then pumped into, is used in many different ways, right? But there's commercial banks like Goldman Sachs that work with businesses and help fund and distribute the Fed's dollars, and they go to smaller banks, local branches that you would work with, and the branches where you touch your money, and it's managed by one of those bigger commercial banks, and then there's a bunch of different branches off of that stuff, right? So essentially what you guys are saying is the blockchain is like the Federal Reserve, the government, maybe even the commercial banks that kind of manages the overall operations of the transactions and helps back the operations of the banks. So think of like Coinbase, aka an exchange, as a New York Stock Exchange or a NASDAQ, and then your wallet, so I have a Coinbase wallet, is kind of like my bank branch. But then there's also all kinds of different ways that the blockchain is used. So the U.S. dollar and the Federal Reserve, therefore, kind of, there's a bunch of offshoots of that blockchain. Like blockchain isn't necessarily it's not about currency. It's a technology and a decentralization of that centralization of power in the Federal Reserve. Did I come close?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty dang close.
Okay. All right, Harry, Rhinehold. I mean, you guys weigh in. I know you both work in tech. Like, was I close? Like, how would you explain the blockchain and some of everything that's going on, Harry? I know you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
Not really chomping at the bit. The one thing I wanted to comment on is like, I don't think like blockchain is going to make a second internet. I think like a lot of technology claims out there to do a second internet. I think the internet is, I think the one thing that will make the internet better is which is to get our protocol so it's be like encrypted, and that is one thing that this type of cryptography can help us with.
Now let's stop there. Okay, what is a protocol? I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay. Protocols, let's think about these old school like technical things that are used on the network on the wire. So what we're going to do, so the things that we're using to transmit like our communications are using like these old school like protocols. Like a protocol that everyone uses every day is email. Yeah,
like a what, Vincent? What did you say, Vincent?
A good way to describe it is a protocol is like a language.
Okay.
A type of. Go ahead.
Yeah. And there are federated protocols out there that everyone uses to connect to the internet. The main one that everyone uses that becomes the standard for use of the internet is called TCP/IP, and that's what everyone uses now. And it's a great piece of tech, but they had some issues with it because when it was created, processors and RAM and storage was like a huge commodity at them. So it's also not encrypted. So everything that transfers through the network or through the wires, everything has to know your destination and where you came from. And it's known to anyone. If you know how to open up the system, you can have it. And I think building a second internet was to get rid of that, and so you can hide it. So you can send an email, and no one besides the person who got it knows about it. It'd be an amazing piece of tech, and that to me could be transfers of the net. And that goes off to other things about like with the blockchain in general. But the blockchain, what it really does is basically I use a way to explain it on the simplest form. It allows you to trust sending money to someone where the in between, you don't care how it gets there. It just got there. You're like, I just want to send someone $5, but I don't know how to do it without having to go through a bank or something else. And I need to be able to trust someone. So like that same type of trust that if you're sitting at at the ballpark, this is probably pre-COVID. I was probably going to do this right now for a while, is that I bought a hot dog from the hot dog vendor and it get passed around 5 different people by trusting not to take chomps out of my hot dog. And I got my hot dog.
Okay. Rhinehold, do you want to weigh in?
I guess I just want to kind of go a little bit more. I'm more knowledgeable about the tech than I am about how we use crypto currencies and Bitcoins and things like that for buying things and trading. That's kind of where I've kind of stayed out of it for the most part. But the technology, I understand the technology and the, prime numbers and the blockchain and how all that kind of encryption and stuff works. But I think a lot of people are probably coming to this who may not be familiar with the technology and familiar with what Bitcoin is, and they just keep hearing about it on the news. And I think a lot of people just want to know what a Bitcoin is. Like, if you have $1, you can pull $1 out of your wallet and you can hold it up and say, this is $1. I have $1. It's physical. I have it. It's there. And the idea of a virtual currency, I think, is what turns a lot of people away from the technology. It turns a lot of people away from what's happening. It seems like it's just funny money and people trying to take advantage of each other.
Well, that's a great point, because that's exactly why I was never an early believer in any of this. I mean, in 2013, a guy came along and said, hey, I want to explain this to your audience, and I'll give you a Bitcoin if you let me do it, because he had, it was basically advertising. And at the time, like, it was like a couple $100, so I was like,
a whole Bitcoin?
Yeah, a whole Bitcoin.
Wow. And you said no?
And I said no.
Oh, no.
Because I thought it was all baloney, and
that was the down payment on your house.
And then and then it went up to 1,000. I was like, man, I should have taken that Bitcoin. And then it crashed to like 190, and I was like, see, I'm right. I would have loved for it to be
$36,000.
Like, forget 62. Like, 36 would have been. But, and I think in the beginning, if you listen to a lot of those older shows in 12 and 13, I was like, all right, I see the promise, but I don't get it. And that's always kind of been like my argument on the show with Harry is the real world, even if this is the future, the real world right now offers so many easy ways to interact with it, whereas some of this stuff is complicated and hard to explain and people don't get it. And like what I would say is there's not enough critical mass yet to use the technology to really, like, as a small creator of a media brand that doesn't have a lot of income, that has less than, we barely make profit, and our income in the monthly income's in the low thousands, right? So we don't have a lot of money to invest in technology that will get us to where we need to be. But over the last 5 years, I would say especially, there has been a lot of people investing in this space. And so Paul Krugman writes this article this past week saying, 10 years on, look at how it's failed. There's no, like, we're not using this as money. You're still using the dollar. What's the point of crypto? It's just a libertarian fantasy. And the obvious argument to that is that if you have paid attention to it, like you guys, because Vincent, do you have a job? Like, do you just live off of your crypto gains?
I could at this point, but no, I still have a job.
Okay, so he's follows it enough that it is becoming somewhat of an industry where people are, like that website I signed up with, or Coinbase that just went public on the NASDAQ. Like, there is an industry that's starting to build around this, and so I think, like Rhinehold said, people kind of think of it like funny money, like I did a few years ago, but your friends and everybody's kind of talking about it, and you start to pay attention, and you pay attention over a few years, you start to go, you know what? I think there's like some real promise. Like I saw Maker about a year ago, and how Maker like is used to do these transactions for business to business transactions and pay terminals. So you go in, so like think like Stripe or the PayPal card that the little terminal. What am I thinking of? The little triangle that would go into your iPad. Square. So like Maker is basically the backbone of a Square. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I'm putting some money in that. Well, I made enough to like, it put me over the top to get something you'll find out about later. I don't want to say that yet publicly. Hint. But my point is, like, Maker is a real technology with real uses, and people are using it, and that's why it's gone from 1,000 to 4,000 in the span of like 6 months, because people are kind of realizing, and every newbie like me uses Coinbase, and they offered like a little bit of Maker if you watched about Maker, and that's where I learned about it. I was like, that tutorial got me into it because I saw, oh, this isn't just a currency. This is like investing in a bank, basically investing in Square early on. So, yes. But instead of like a bunch of rich guys owning the start of Square and it being funded by venture capitalists and 3 or 4 people, it's crowdfunded by people like me who put $50 in. And you're building a business around that. So,
exactly.
Like Gault and Vincent just got a little aroused by me getting that.
That was a great explanation. It
really was.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been telling my friends that, I mean, and this is not 100%, but for the stock market, you are buying into the company and the company's future. For a lot of legitimate coins, legitimate crypto, not just the memes and all this crap, but in there, you're arguably paying for the technology / the team.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just funny money. There are real uses, and so like let's talk about these different currencies, because there's like several thousand cryptos, and there's Dogecoin and Bitcoin and Anchor and Compound and like Ethereum and like the big ones are Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's what are like the top 5 that you guys would say?
They're all different. They're all different blockchains. They're all their own separate blockchains.
I think in order to explain any of them, I think you need to explain Bitcoin first and why it's different from the rest.
All right. So, Harry, you have been accused of being Satoshi. Are you or are you not Satoshi? Greg used to accuse you of being Satoshi, and you said, no, I am indeed not Satoshi. Who is Satoshi and what is blockchain? Let's start with Harry, and then we'll go around, and if he misses something, you add to it. Go ahead, Harry.
That's fine. I'm one of the people that believe that Satoshi, to me personally, I think Satoshi is was either a group of people or group of...
Who is Satoshi first?
Satoshi Nakamoto is the person that was credited and known as the creator of this type of cryptography, known as the blockchain technology. It came up with the paper, was like, I can't remember when, I think it was like 2005 or something like that, when talking about this type of proof of being able to send out basically the creation of the blockchain. So like has this idea of being able to trust people out in the world, but not be able to talk to them all at the exact same time. So it's more of just allowing that out. Created the technology and started Bitcoin. Okay,
so everything we're talking about today, Maker and Compound and blockchains and websites at WeAreLibertarians.Crypto and you know, the 1.5 billion market cap of Dogecoin, and
it's 11 o'clock.
Sorry, that is my computer.
And it's 11 o'clock. So, and that is
my girlfriend really hates that. She's like, "Can you turn that creepy voice off?" I'm like, "No, it keeps me on schedule." So everything started with this paper written by Satoshi in 2005.
Yes. And which is like always surprising to me, like everyone like in the space, is that whoever is Satoshi or whoever this person is or whoever she is, it is the idea that someone has kept this idea quiet and the coins really haven't moved. It's nerve wracking because so it always has all these weird conspiracy. You could do like several episodes on the conspiracy theories alone on who or what or is Satoshi Nakamoto. Like personally, I think I really think whoever Satoshi is or was, that they passed away. Honestly, that's the only reason I can see that someone can keep this under wraps and not talk about it.
Could you imagine you're like the guy that created the 44,000 Bitcoins or whatever it is, and then you die before you're like, at least JP Morgan got to be a little rich for a while.
Arguably, that person would be just happy that their technology went out and is being used versus the price it actually is.
No, I want to be rich. I don't care about my technology. I want Wall to flourish, but I also want to be rich while Wall flourishes. So let's be honest. Like, you guys, I love that we have hosts that embrace the Wall brand and profit. I want to profit. I want to make money at this. So
that's good. Well, the other thing is like there's no like clue. Like no one knew that cryptocurrency was going to get as big as it has gone. Is there a lot of emotion in the market? It is, and gotten it as big as it is, as quickly it is. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It honestly reminds me. So I read the day the bubble burst about the 1928 crash, and the environment right now reminds me a lot of that book, because everybody was buying little bits of stocks on margins, and you know, the bubble eventually burst, but it was a lot of people who didn't know what they were doing, and when it came time to get out, the whales got out. You know, the Elon Musks sold their parts of Bitcoin in a pump and dump, and then left the little guy who has $25 in their account holding the bag. So that's, I think, a big danger with this. And so there's always reasons to cancel cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, right? So it uses too much energy, and poor people get poorer because of playing in it, and blah, 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 blah. And like there's a million reasons why the media and you know, people who love the Federal Reserve and believe that, you know, they're in charge, tell you not to play in this space.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and if you care about the energy consumption, please get off the internet right now. Just turn it off. Just
get out and
would
just
be
live
nice
in the wilderness.
It'd be nice to be able to afford a good video card these days.
Me too. Yeah.
You're right, though, Spangle. There are a lot of risks, and that's why I really like this audience here, because some people look at risks and they say, I want someone to protect me from that and stop that. And our people like us look at risks and say we need to do our own research and protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you need to do if you're going to put any money, even even $50 into this space, you need to do your own research and not listen to us and not listen to your friend and not buy some meme coin there that everyone's screaming about on the internet. And you need to do your own research because those risks are yours and yours alone to take. And nobody's going to protect you in a decentralized market like this.
No, we have seen over the last year a very real incarnation of the two different types of people. The people who recognize that risks exist and you're not. And how many times have I said this on the show, Gault? You are not guaranteed to walk out your front door and come back, and there is no law that can protect you and save you from that position. I've said it since 2012 because it's just the truth. And trying to control other people to reduce your risk is completely immoral. And so we're at a point now, like with vaccine technologies and the vaccine rollout and numbers in COVID, where it's safe to go out for the most part, and you have a therapy to protect yourself. And it isn't April 2020 anymore. It's May 2021, and the facts have changed, and we need to all adjust our risk parameters, right? So some of us thought, oh, okay, this isn't as much of a risk, and my personal risk threshold is here, and I'll go to Florida in July. And other people said, my personal risk threshold is I need to stay home because I have other people to care for. That spectrum needs to be respected by all and needs to, and so this is the same way, right? Some people, do either of you, Vincent or Gault, want to say how many thousands of dollars you're down this week?
I will say I'm down almost 50%. I won't say a number, but I'm down 50% of my money in a week.
Now, is that money that you are down, or is that gains that you've made, the profit that you shed?
Everything, everything is based off of the United States dollar, so it's measured in U.S. dollars. So in U.S. dollars, I am down 50%. If I measure my crypto in Bitcoin, I'm only down maybe 5%, 10%. So it's kind of interesting. It all depends on the measure you're using, but obviously most people and most normal people in existence right now use the United States dollar as the measure. But yeah, I believe that may change one day.
No, I mean, it's stellar.
Inflation
XLM is backed by the Ukrainian government, is it not? Used by the government.
And there's XSGD is Singapore, and there are other national currencies that are blockchain technology now. Yeah, and I mean, I think we will go there one day, maybe as a global currency. But we'll see. No, you always have to think about, and this is a core tenet of libertarianism and the right and natural rights tradition, right? So, it's Thomas Sowell's constrained vision, his conflict of visions, right? So in his book, he explains that there are two visions of government and society, right? People in the libertarian world tend to look at human nature as it is and then work around that or work with that, as opposed to looking at, we can perfect this behavior through law. And, when it comes to human behavior, everything is about optimization to reduce scarcity. That is the core principle of human behavior. If you look through history, if you look at economics, every single person listening to this show wants to get more money as fast as possible to reduce their risk, to provide for their comforts, to provide for their security. And blockchain offers a way to do that faster. And so the people who are in charge of the current system through the Federal Reserve System are hesitant about blockchain because it's so new. But once, and this is starting to happen, they realize they can make their transactions much faster than with an ACH, right? So I'm waiting on a payment from one service, and I know that they dispersed the funds on the 20th. It's May 22nd. I still haven't gotten my paycheck because it's got to go through the banks that Vincent was talking about. What happens when banks realize that they can do this instantly because of the blockchain? So you're starting to see Chase and some of these other banks get into it, aren't you, Vincent and Gault?
Yep.
Yeah, you asked about top 5 cryptos. That's one of them, I would say, is XRP. And every crypto has its use case, but that's literally the problem XRP tries to solve is liquidity between banks. It's not made for people, it's made for institutions and moving money across borders quickly. And and the like Vince was describing the process that is now, and how slow it is, and how costly it is, and that's why XRP is so big. And I mean, you've probably heard of Ripple, haven't you?
Yeah. Isn't that the one that Coinbase stopped trading because of some SEC investigation?
Yep. Exactly. And why do you think the SEC would investigate a company that's or a blockchain that's main purpose is to solve liquidity problems between banks and like in an uncontrollable way, right?
No shit, they're using government force to reduce competition. That would never happen. You shut up.
Yeah. You can see why the SEC wouldn't like that, or at least want to challenge it, right? And that's what they did. That's why they're doing that.
Okay, so Bitcoin comes out, and there's a finite amount of Bitcoins, and then you mine it. Can someone explain to me what is mining? Because it's been in the news, because that's the phony baloney use case that Elon said, well, I'm dumping Bitcoin, I'm not using it because of the energy usage. What is mining? What is this concept, Harry, with how many Bitcoins are there, and what is mining, and what's all that about?
When people are designing and creating your own crypto, like a cryptography, you can basically put in a limit on how many coins can be mined from it. If you have an issue with that, you can go ahead and fork the coin, or fork the network. But I don't recommend doing that. But there's a limit on it.
What is forking the network?
Don't worry about that. We'll get to that forking.
You're making your own copy.
Okay. All right.
But what the thing with it, what we want to talk about is the mining. So what it is if you think about it, the cryptography is just a series of numbers. Almost like if you look at the little thing on the back, let's say that thing is just like a puzzle piece with numbers on it, and it's a puzzle that you have to solve. Well, what solves puzzles fast? Computers. Basically, especially when CPUs were doing it. It was CPUs solving these mathematical codes and unlocking and basically unwrapping these boxes, and they would sit there and go like, cool, there's a coin inside. Cool, I've got a coin. Or nothing. Okay? And it's the computers are just doing that, but they're doing it blazing fast. So that's basically on a basic sense on what when you see those things of GPUs, it's just basically this thing solving puzzles pieces really, really quickly to uncover things to hopefully they find coins.
Okay, somebody else explain Go ahead, Vincent.
I just want to say real quick that the incentive for the miners to basically crunch through these algorithms is they get a little bit of that Bitcoin or whatever blockchain that they're helping crunch. And so, Chris was talking about he had to pay an Ethereum gas fee in order to get his domain. Well, that is because the people who are mining, they get a little bit of their cut. So all that gas fee goes to the miners crunching all that stuff out.
Okay, so I've got to pay the guy who pulled the diamond out of the mine in South Africa. Allegedly, yes. I have to pay them. They're supposed to be paid.
Unfortunately, right now, because of network upgrades and a huge upgrade happening with Ethereum and protecting it, they temporarily increased gas fees to a pretty crazy high right now to discourage some things that, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not balls deep in the technical upgrade of the blockchain itself, but
speaking of balls
over
deep,
the gas fees and increased them.
So speaking of balls deep, Gault, where did you buy that couch?
Oh, that is funny. I got it for free, man. Exactly how it should be.
You found it on the side of the road, of course.
Just outside of an Arizona office complex, or
that was from a casting shoot, I think.
Okay,
did you clean that off?
Go ahead, Rhinehold.
So, a little bit more into the mining and what mining is and why this is a big deal as far as energy consumption is that okay? So there's certain you have the blockchain is a large cryptography, chain of numbers and things like that, and you can do the way cryptography works is that it's easy to multiply prime numbers, but it's very, very, very difficult to factor them back out again. So quickly we can encrypt things and decrypt things if we know the codes, the keys on either side to decrypt it because we know what it is. But if you don't know and you're trying to figure it out, you have to factor prime numbers out of the mathematics, and that takes a lot more resources. It can take for 128 bits. We could be looking at 20 years at current technology to break that cryptography, right? So that's the hard part. That's the math part of it, right? So the normal functionality, and that's why encryption is fairly well protected means of communication, because it takes a lot of effort to break that. Usually what you do when you break cryptography is you break a failure in the writing of the code of the original encryption technology, right? So that the way the different cryptography is put together, people make mistakes. Somebody finds an exploit and they break it. It's not because they break the hard math on the factoring of the primes on it, right? So what the miners are doing, are they putting together these big computer systems? A lot of times they're using video cards, they're using a bunch of things just wired together with the focus of quickly running through these calculations in order to find a hit. And when you get a hit, when you actually can factor that information, you gain a Bitcoin, or you gain a coin out of the cryptography.
What do you have? What are you?
These big computer systems trying to run through that code.
Harry,
Harry's cradling his GPU.
Old gen GPU. I just want to upgrade. Please let me upgrade my GPUs.
Upgrade.
I'm sorry, I bought you 3090, man.
What is so? Why can't you get a video card? What is a GPU? Why is this?
The miners? The miners are using graphics cards, higher end graphics cards, to chain them together to do these mining machines.
If you're
the problem is that so many people are all these people are buying them for mining, that the cost of buying one is now through the roof if you can find one, because they're just out of stock. They can only make them so fast.
So what is it? Is
with the COVID and
especially with COVID, the manufacturing has slowed down a lot.
So what is it about why GPUs? What is it about that piece of the computer equipment that
it can solve those? If you didn't follow Rhinehold and what he was talking about with the math and the cryptology, it's basically that the blockchain think of it as a ledger. And those problems they're solving are transactions. If I want to send money to you, like I did the other day, that gas fee, that they solve that problem. It's encrypted and sent through the blockchain, and then the computer solves that problem and sends it to all the rest of the computers. So they all have the same ledger, and it's confirmed that way. And that fee that I paid you. That I paid to send that to you, Spangle. That goes to the miners to do that problem.
Okay, so I'm paying somebody to use their computer to solve my math problem, and so it's not an annoying fee. It's paying for the energy, paying for the equipment. It's paying for the solving of that math problem.
The computing power that's utilized, right? So we used to share CompuServe. We used to timeshare computing power because it was so expensive to do, and it's kind of that sort of thing again, where we're trying to find a way to fund this.
Okay. I want to do a bunch of things in the next 5 minutes or so. I don't want to. I want to start wrapping up, but I want to first try to break down what are some of the top coins. And then I want to explain how to not lose your shirt on fees. How do you guys do it? How do you interact? Fees are a big deal. So let's start with those other coins besides Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the first. There's a finite amount. You're mining for those coins. Are all cryptocurrencies like that? Or how did some of these different, what is Ethereum? What is Doge? What is Tezos? And what are some of these other ones that you see? And while you do that, I'm going to go get some cheese for my associate producer and more orange juice.
Well, you want to go with it, Vince? There are many different coins. There are, not every blockchain uses mining. Some of them use staking or to do the transactions, which is just basically shareholders that are invested in the platform. But I don't know what coins you want to talk about.
I just want to say that Bitcoin is different than everything else because Bitcoin was made first, created the technology, but the dev team is either gone, missing in action, dead. Bitcoin is what we have. Mm-hmm. Everything, people who are mining it can only mine so much for right now, and then here in 3 years they're only going to get half, and then 3 to 4 years from that they're only going to get half of that. So Bitcoin is becoming extremely scarce. No one can change it. No one can really do anything. So the best way to describe Bitcoin is digital gold, and I mean that in a literal sense of it's gold. It can't be like messed with. I mean, arguably its biggest risk would be being hacked and stuff like that. But moving on from that point, the number 2 coin is Ethereum, and I'd say 90% of its value is because of its team that is constantly developing and getting better and revolutionizing stuff. And right now we mentioned that, the gas fees are really high and we're paying miners to do these transactions. But ultimately it all ties back into Ethereum. The reason why the GPUs are in short supply is because Ethereum is over $2,000. So mining just a itty bitty of it can give you hundreds of dollars. Whereas, just a few months ago, Ethereum was $500-$700. Mining a little bit of it only gave you like tens of dollars and stuff. That's ultimately what's happening there. However, Ethereum is in the process of moving to a proof of stake model in which there's no more miners. There's no people with computers calculating these transactions. Instead, it gets a little bit more technical, and you use your coin to basically validate the rest of the blockchain, to simplify the term like that. And the whole point of this is to remove miners, remove all this power it takes to do each transaction. And when that takes place, so I'd say that current timeline is Ethereum's going to switch over to staking in July, at the end of July. Is that what everyone's heard here?
Yep, it'll be a lot cheaper.
Yep. When that happens, 1, we'll get rid of all of our gas fees, but 2, you'll notice a huge crash in GPU supply as everyone is selling all their GPUs because they can no longer make money because the big cash cow, the golden goose, is no longer paying out. At all.
Okay, so what is staking? Because I've seen this on Coinbase that staking's coming and you can get involved, but if you explain that, I missed it. So can you just really quickly repeat that?
At a very basic level, you take the coins that you have, you loan it out to probably a node or some major partnership with this dev team that's just helping run the network, and you loan your coins out, and those coins essentially on a simple level are validating the rest of the blockchain. So they're doing the whole clearing each transaction, making sure that they're not fake, everything's legit, and that the transactions are being pushed through, but they're being validated against coins that are already there. So basically, just imagine you have a big math equation, and your coins are a tiny little bit of the math equation, but you can use your math equation to figure out the rest. And because of that, you can be paid for your little tiny bit. And it removes the whole, environmental impact of each and individual people mining with their computers. And instead, we can potentially work with the nodes that are already there and remove a large portion of the environmental footprint.
Okay, so that's going to take away some of the concerns that an Elon has that is being basically like the people who, the global warming COVID people are looking at Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain and going, we need to get rid of this.
If you read what Elon said, he said Bitcoin has environmental problems. He did not say blockchain because Bitcoin, like Vince said, doesn't have developers and people that are advancing it and changing it to proof of stake like Ethereum is. Other blockchains do not have that problem. Well, some may, but it's not inherent across the board.
Yeah, but to the controlling Karens in the media and in other places, they don't know the distinction. So it's all
Bitcoin is crypto.
Right. Yeah, all crypto needs to go away. So I didn't quite understand staking. It's not that Vincent didn't do a good job, but can somebody explain it to me a little simpler or in a different way, Rhinehold?
I think it'd be more like buying a stock in a company, right? And then as the company grows and uses the money that you've used to purchase that stock to do things and get better and function, they return some of that back to you.
Okay.
Over time. So it's kind of the same thing.
A computing dividend, if you will.
Right. And what I'm seeing though is that we're kind of starting to centralize a little bit of the decentralization with the different, like Coinbase and that sort of thing. So, I mean, like you said, to get Ethereum, though, you have the selling point of that is that the tech team is good and you trust them and you want to, make sure that they function and get better. But at that point, then we start going into, now we're trying to trust these groups, as opposed to it being the original idea was that everybody was their own individual and they all did their own thing and everybody took care of themselves, right? So as society starts getting into this, it's going to start looking more and more like current systems that are out there, I think.
Go ahead,
Vincent. Do you agree with that?
Definitely right. The biggest problem with crypto and starting off that no one really wants to talk about is, in order for your coin to work, to really truly work, it must go through a centralization period. Arguably, the perfect coin, let's just pick Ethereum. They're working on it. They've developed it. They believe it can do everything that it needs to do from here on out. Then the dev team would walk away and arguably find a way to publicly show that they do not have access to their controlling wallets anymore. This would be the perfect coin, because at that point it's truly decentralized. They can't change it anymore. It's on its own. It's a new Bitcoin, essentially. But that doesn't really happen in most coins. So yes, that is actually a true fear that, the decentralized, what is the decentralization when we're just centralizing into the dev team? That is a very valid concern.
Yep.
Okay, so Dash. What is Dash Coin? What is DAI? What is, we explained Maker earlier, let me ask this, okay? What are, Gault and Vincent, Harry, Rhinehold, you weigh in if you want. Give me your top 2 favorite coins. Not the ones. Give me the one that makes sense. You gotta own Ethereum because it's gonna go from 2 to 30,000 in 5 years. The one that your head says. But what's your heart coin?
I like. Oh, you said top 2?
Yeah, just give me 2 or 3. Yeah.
All right. My first is Polygon Matic. I like Matic, is the ticker symbol Matic. It is the solution for Ethereum scalability problems, which is the one problem Ethereum has right now is it can't handle the amount of people and volume that are pushing through it. Polygon fixes that problem, basically. And then my second favorite coin is Zilliqa. Zilliqa is great. You can hold it long term. You can stake it and earn 15% returns on your ZIL. So if the price doesn't change all year, I still make 15%. I love Zilliqa. They have a great team. They have their own contract language and everything. It's totally separate from everything else.
How does so I've seen in Coinbase, Tezos and some of these DAI, they have guaranteed percentages. How do they guarantee that I'm going to get 4% of my money back in the next year?
Well, because you understood how it worked with mining, right? And how they get paid, right?
Right.
They take those transaction fees. Proof of stake is the same thing, that your money is verifying transactions on the blockchain. So they split up those transaction fees to the stakers. And that's what that is. That money is those transaction fees split up between all of the stakeholders. And that would be you if you stake.
Okay.
So you get it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Vincent, what's your head coin and what's your heart coin?
Well, Chris kind of took mine that I was going to say. So I do want to add one last thing to Zilliqa, because this is my biggest bag and everything. One thing that's really unique about ZIL is they do mining and staking at a 60-40 split. So miners get 60% of the all, I guess, federally reserve printed coins, and the stakers get 40%. On top of that, they also have smart contracts, but like many people, unlike everybody else, though, they have error correcting smart contracts. So if something were to go wrong, network issues, just weird buy or whatever, Zilliqa can actually roll back a little bit, correct the issue, and still send it through. In a crazy circumstance. My other coins, since Chris talked about the 2, would have to be, I think Theta is going to be a huge coin, and basically Theta is the idea of, at simplistic terms, Twitch on a blockchain. That's data. And one of the cool concepts of blockchain is, so we're getting rid of that middleman, right? Then we don't have to pay people, and it allows content creators to be the owners of the content that they create. I mean, just think, you got to go to the record label and you make a song, and that song has had 1 million listens, say like 1970s, you would probably get paid about $35,000 from that, maybe, right? Today, you get like $35. You know what I mean? And that is a moving goalpost. It keeps moving as we grow as a planet, and more people are listening and tapping into that product. But that's not determined by the content creators. It's determined by the people that actually market and push that content out. Whereas, like, people are getting heat for it, but NFTs allow a artist to come in, make their picture or song, and now, in a way, that song is the business, not the artist, the song itself. So people want to use that song for the commercial, they'll have to contact arguably this NFT for the ownership of it. And it just gets rid of the middlemen, but it also puts a little bit more weight on you to handle your own marketing, your own distribution, and all that stuff like that. But ultimately, this takes so many industries and puts it back into the hands of the people actually creating the value, essentially.
Harry, what are your top two and why?
I will say that I barely get NFTs, which makes me just want to go get a bunch because I don't understand it. But but that's for me. But all right, so my head coin, the one I really like is like Horizon, formerly Zencash, just because I like the idea of being able to send people things on the blockchain, so it's trusted, but no one knows who I sent it to. They just see that in my wallet or I just send things to my wallet. No one knows anything about it. I like that idea, the original idea, like of the anonymous transaction of cryptocurrency. I like that idea. Will everyone want to use this as like a store of value of an asset? No, I would really like it more. Keep continually getting built just for that, and that be able to send private communications and sending money privately, or just be able to trade that asset class. The other one I want to talk about is I still like Dash. I think the idea of Dash is neat. I don't know if it actually will keep going with, but the idea is like the idea of this decentralized platform of everything is like all with everyone in the market, the miners, everyone has to get together and vote, and there's really no one in charge of it. The idea of that is neat. I don't really know if it'll get to where it needs to be ever, but I think that the idea of being out there, being people playing with that idea, I don't know, that little inner anarchist of mine is just like, this is awesome.
Sounds like your associate producer is also a big fan of Dash and is cheering it along there in the background. It'll be very wholesome when our associate producers get to play at the pool party together.
Yes.
When are we going to sell Gault punching Creighton as an NFT? What do you think? Or maybe, Bittner with his little his little shoes.
I'll buy it if you make it holographic.
Rhinehold, do you have like a favorite coin of yours?
I do not. As opposed to everybody on here, I probably am the one without the wallet, as it were.
Are you don't seem like a crypto person at all. Are you not a crypto guy at all?
Oh, I'm a huge crypto guy. I gave an hour presentation on the history and the science behind cryptography just a few years ago at a users group. I mean, I understand the technology. The problem was, I think, so there's a local guy on the radio here called Pete the Planner who does a lot of planning for financial success, right? And I was listening to him the other day, and they were talking about Bitcoin, and he's just like, I think part of the problem is that I didn't recognize the potential for Bitcoin when it first came along, so I didn't jump on it. And now that it's successful, I resent it, and I don't want to be involved in it. It's I want to see it fail. I want it to crash and burn, and everybody and I can point and laugh and say,
that's sort of
back in 2007, 2008. I had the opportunity. I was doing a lot of cryptography back in the day. I could have said, hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin for like $20 a coin. It was very, 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 very cheap back then. But my mind's like, this isn't going anywhere. I would just be giving somebody $20, or it wouldn't, what's the point? And I couldn't make myself do it. And, sitting here now and looking at the price and going, yeah, I could be retired right now. Kind of puts a damper on me wanting to get into it now. But I'm trying to break myself of that mentality, because I need to find, I think everybody should find different ways to diversify how they're doing their investments in their future and making their money. And I guess my big question would be like, from Vincent and Chris, what do you do every day? What do you do to make money? I mean, what physically do you just, you open up a wallet and you just say, okay, now I'm going to do this staking, or I'm going to do this here or this there. What do you do, and how do you see those gains coming?
Well,
and I think that's really kind of what we want to see.
Right now, the space is really expanding in DeFi, decentralized finance, and Spangle, if he wants to buy a crypto right now, he goes to Coinbase and he buys a crypto. There are ways to buy cryptos now that are decentralized platforms that aren't owned by a company like that, and because that area is expanding and there's all kinds of new ones launching every week. There's what I'm doing to make money is something called yield farming. And basically I take my collateral and I put it onto one of these new platforms that's launching, one of these new decentralized exchanges. And I farm the fees that when people trade on there, I farm the fees. And I don't get cash. I don't get more of my coin. I get every exchange has its own token. And so I'm farming on Moscow Finance right now for Moscow tokens, or they're always something different. But then I can take those Moscows and I can sell them. I can buy more Bitcoins with them. I can reinvest those back into the farm and farm more fees. So that's the way I'm doing it right now. And because it's blowing up so fast, I mean, there's something new almost every day. It's kind of crazy how you have to stay up on it, to maximize your gains.
Sort of like the growth of We Are Libertarians. I mean, to be honest.
Well, I kind of what it sounds like to me is it's like the stock market, and the fact that you can stake or buy shares and that sort of thing, and you can get return back on the investment. You're really kind of just trading against the value of the money over time. Is that what we're doing? The value of the coin over time, as opposed to like a business. So if you invest in Disney when they're first getting started and then they blow up, you're going to regain a lot of profit from that, right? By selling off
you have that same thing here. It would just be like, it's called spot. So you buy a token, you believe in its future, you hold on to it, that's it. And then you check on it here in 3 years. That would be the most basic form of trading.
When some of these marketplaces are small. Some of these marketplaces are small, and everyone here understands how supply and demand works.
Yeah.
So it's literally just that. On a bigger marketplace, your purchase and your sale is going to make a little impact. In a very small marketplace, your purchase and your sale is going to make a huge impact on the price. So it's just supply and demand. That's why Dogecoin is what it is and became what it was because people didn't want to sell it for 40 cents, and people wanted to buy it all the way up to 60 cents. So people just kept buying it and keep buying it. And there was way more buyers than sellers. And that's why it did what it did. And that's why you see these crazy gains. It's supply and demand.
Right. So what I'm seeing right now is that, so it's kind of like doing stock markets, like doing other things, but it's where the volatility is. It's where the higher ups and downs are, right? So like the stock market is for the most part pretty well stable in a way, so that you're not having huge wild swings. Whereas in some of these Coinbases or crypto technologies, you can have a wild swing back and forth. You can do pump and dumps. You can earn money on speculation a lot quicker and sooner and see that profit in a much shorter period of time, as opposed to a long haul 401k or something.
Would the government be able to regulate? Is basically my opinion. Elon Musk used his company to pump and dump Bitcoin. I mean, everybody that I've talked to shares that opinion.
Spangle, if they had a way to regulate it, they already would be.
That's what. That's why.
They don't know how to do it.
Oh, they're trying.
They're trying. There's a lot of people spending a lot of money.
Well, that's why we'll talk we'll talk in the news block about Biden's attempts. Why is Doge a joke? Why is Doge? I mean, is that a smart use of your money, or will it just end up lost in a wallet or a flood like poor Harry?
Yeah,
I'll say controversially that it's not a joke anymore.
Okay. Why is that controversial? What is it, and why?
Up until this point, I would say that it was a joke, but now it has actual corporate sponsors and partnerships that provide actual utility. So,
why was it a joke? What made it a joke?
But like, if people start accepting Dogecoin as transfers, I mean, I could see a world where more people are accepting Dogecoin in this immediate future than more people are accepting Bitcoin. And at that point,
was originally. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll say Dogecoin was originally more of a jokey. Anybody can do a crypto chain, blockchain. So somebody said, let's do a fun one. Let's do Dogecoin. It won't be serious. We'll just do this.
Hyperinflated.
It was 100%.
What happened is that somebody found it, somebody picked it, and it grew, and now it's become its own thing. And really, whatever people believe in that has value is what's going to be the ultimate winner.
So as I understand it, it was a joke because like Bitcoin had like 44,000, but Dogecoin had millions. And so it's like the amount of gold that backed Doge was so crazy compared to other Bitcoins that it was just kind of like, oh yeah, it's this funny dog. And, you know, I bought it for 0.2 cents and now it's 0.8 cents and I made a ton of money. And then all of a sudden it's 0.42 cents and now everybody's rich unless they're Harry. Is that right? Like, is that why it was a joke? Is because it was just so valueless?
It was designed to be like the Federal Reserve on steroids. So in the beginning, it was printing off crazy amounts of itself. Now, over time, that's actually slowed down crazily. I mean, it wasn't planned necessarily like that. It was just they wanted to hyperinflate it. That was the whole point of a joke. You know, here's a currency that's going to perpetually get less, you know, or less value. That's the whole point.
Just like the dollar.
Except at this point, and you know, with its use and everything, the inflation's actually slowed down. I would argue right now, without any facts to back it, I would argue that Dogecoin is inflating at a scale than the current US dollar.
Wow. I used to use like the Dogecoin. The reason why I had a bunch was to just give people like cryptocurrency so they can actually learn to use it because I could get tons of it. I could easily give you 1,000 to play with this coin, transfer it back and forth, and even use it as like a petty cash at work. It's like instead of like trading like an IOU, it's like, hey, I'm going to send you 100 Doge because I'm taking a soda. Did that 100 Doge pay for that soda? Hell no. But you know, it felt good, and you guys practice trading, you know, crypto around. You know, and I really going at
so that is so condescending. You're like, you're too dumb for real crypto. Here's some Dogecoin. You commoner dumb person.
Man, it was funny like that one year, like at Pork Fest, they were like, here's the Bitcoin price of this thing, here's the Litecoin of this place, and these massive like 2 sheets of paper on how much Doge this would cost. It's like, yeah, if you want to pay me in Doge, I need all of that.
Yeah, 100% made as a joke. The developers even left after a few years and abandoned the project because it was literally a joke. It was just Elon Musk. I mean, Elon Musk decided with his autistic brain that I like Doge, I like Dogies, and made that his coin. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Might be a little bit of ego in seeing if he could, you know, one, manipulate the market as well, but two, see if he can manipulate the market to have everyone buy a joke coin.
And you know, Elon hates the SEC. I mean, he's had battles with them before with Tesla and SpaceX, and this is his way of getting back, and they can't do anything about it. Like,
so if I wanted to create Leader Coin for Dear Leader, and trade a We Are Libertarians coin, you know, what would how do you do that?
Well, one, you would need to pick a platform to start from. So Ethereum is the most popular platform in which people create what's called an ERC20 token, and that token doesn't have its own blockchain. It exists on an existing blockchain, Ethereum in that case, and then you can work your way up. You know, this honestly, you guys as a platform, I would see no point in you guys needing your own blockchain. So you could forever
How
just
dare you, sir?
I know. You could forever sit on, this blockchain platform and develop and just have utility within that. But someone else would eventually want to move off that. And I say someone else because, you're just a community. You're not trying to support necessarily the world trading your coin for value and all these things. Potentially you as a community would want your community members to hold this coin and get some utility, like maybe some extra activities, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, Say you needed the big thing and you needed to launch your own blockchain, you would do what's called a mainnet. You would eventually move from that ERC20 token, that is the Ethereum blockchain, to now mainnet your own blockchain. In which, if you were another Ethereum, someone could develop coins on top of your platform and start that process all over again.
Coming soon, Bitner coin.
I think it would be actually a really good thing to look into, Spangle. How tied are you to Patreon? Do you love Patreon? Is it your favorite thing in the whole world? Or do you have issues with them?
No, I don't have any issues with them. I don't dislike them. They've always been, every time I've needed help, they've been good to me, and because
you could create your own.
I mean, when I talked to their corporate, they were like, "You guys are one of the most active Patreon in terms of."
Oh, really?
Like years ago, they're like, in terms of giving stuff out, and like when I met with her, she's like, "But you don't have any rewards, and like your audience is like super into." I'm like, "Yeah." So I mean, Patreon, like I don't have big issues with it. So like, but when they removed some people a few years ago, that's when I contacted. I was like, I contacted every platform, and I'm like, listen, I don't like this, I mean, and they've
nice.
They've kind of done a 180 on that era of things and said, that we were a little too harsh, but at the same time, we reserve the right to remove Lauren Southern if we want. So, so anyways, your point being. What?
Well, my point being that let's say you made a D-Liter Ethereum ERC20 token and a leader token. You could create a platform that I have a wallet and I have liters in my wallet, right? And if I have 50 liters in my wallet, I get access to this content.
Okay.
If I have 100 liters in my wallet, I get access to this content. And if I have 1,000 liters in my wallet, I get access to this content. And you can create access that way and gatekeep your content that way.
And so by being the backer of that leader coin, when they have to purchase that 100 tokens from me, and then I grant. How does that grow the back end of Wall that way?
Well, your community itself could have a community wallet that has a certain number of liters in it, and as people buy them, they gain value. And people can donate those liters back to you, or you can say like you have to pay 20 liters to get into this content. So then that way that 20 liters is actually going to your wallet, and then you as the holder of that can use that value however you wanted to.
So as the head of LeaderCoin, I declare there to be in existence 69,420 coins.
Oh, no way. He did not. 69,420 coins. What a meme.
So if you, all right, final recommendations. And my coins are like Ethereum's the head coin. Like that just seems common sense. It's still really cheap compared to Bitcoin. And then the one that I love is Maker because it has a functional utility and I've made a lot of money on it. So, and the people that I recommended to it made money on it. So, and I assume that it's going to keep going up in value too. Now, I do that on Coinbase. That is how and I know there are a lot of, OG nerds like you guys who have issues with Coinbase because of fees. And they don't offer things like ZIL. So if I wanted to buy XRP or ZIL or Theta that is not on that exchange, how do I do that? What are your recommendations? I don't want to use Robinhood. I did for Dogecoin, but I would prefer not to. And Coinbase makes it really easy, but you pay a lot of fees. That was my big objection to not getting that Bitcoin for that interview back in 12 or 13, because it was like I had to get a hard drive and like go through all this stuff. And I was just like, I don't understand it. I don't have time to learn it. I wish I had. And then once Coinbase came along, I'm like, okay, I'm in. And it seems like a lot of those wallets are getting a lot easier and a lot more user-friendly, but Coinbase doesn't offer everything. I like Coinbase. I think it's been a good place for me to start. We have an affiliate link, so if you want to sign up for crypto for Coinbase, please use that affiliate link. It does benefit the network if you use that. But what do you guys use to buy something like a Zillow, or what do you recommend to the newbie? Gault, let's go. Go first, Gault.
Coinbase, you're right. Coinbase is a great place to start. It's a great place to learn. It has learning resources. It gives you rewards for learning. Great place to start. As far as a centralized exchange, I recommend Binance. Binance has the most coins. It has the lowest fees. If you use a bank account, there's no fees. And you can trade and you can move when you're done buying stuff on Binance, you can take those coins and move them to your wallet. Like Vince described earlier, that's your bank account. You don't want to leave your money in someone else's bank account. You want it in your own. Don't use Robinhood. That's my one ask from everyone out there. Do not use Robinhood. Robinhood is bad.
Why?
Robinhood's very bad. Well, Robinhood, because you don't have the crypto in your own wallet, Robinhood can tell you anytime that you can't sell it, or you can't buy it, or you can't move it. You can't get it off of their platform. And if things skyrocket and you have $1 million in there, Robinhood can tell you, but we're not going to let you cash out.
Which means you
can't cash out, and then you literally lose all your money. You watch it all go away, and you can't sell it. No, that's not okay. Binance will never do that to you. I hope. I think less likely than Robinhood, at least.
I think
Binance will let you bring it down to your wallet, your offline wallet. Yeah, which is great to have. It's
Don't you have to have a VPN to use that though, or isn't that like
no?
Okay.
Binance.us.
Okay, got it. All right, I went somewhere else, and you had to have.
You can make an affiliate link on there as well, Spangle, and then you can share that to people, and you'll get commission off their fees.
Okay,
for life.
I'll throw that in the show notes. Yes, please. But I do hope we can maybe do another crypto episode sometime together, because I want to someday with you get past the centralized exchanges and talk about decentralized exchanges and the benefits of that. But we just don't have time today. So like Binance and Coinbase are centralized exchanges, and then you're talking decentralized where you tap in and it's like your hard drive. You're using your own wallet. That sort of thing?
Yeah, because if you want to buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, you buy the Bitcoin from Coinbase. Coinbase provides that liquidity for that trade.
Okay.
On a decentralized exchange, the people, we provide the liquidity on the platform instead of a company or a group. And
which is essentially what Chris is doing. He said he's yield farming and doing all this thing. He's providing liquidity for other people, and they're providing him an incentive. This honestly happens day to day in our normal banks. We put our money in our bank, and our bank goes and takes our money and puts it in a pool and makes money off of it.
Yep.
This just allows us to do that.
So are you guys all using Coinbase or Binance or something else?
I will say that at this point, I don't need to put any more fiat in. But starting, say I were to start over, as a U.S. citizen, you will definitely need to start somewhere like Coinbase or Binance.us, where you say buy Ethereum. You can take that Ethereum to the decentralized place and trade it for whatever you want. Yep. But you had to start somewhere that connects to your bank account.
Yep.
So you're going to need somewhere like Coinbase, Binance, Uphold, somewhere that's regulated enough by the U.S. that allows your U.S. bank account to connect to it to send funds to convert.
A way to put it for libertarians is to get in to the decentralized world of money, you have to, the government gatekeeps the U.S. dollar. And the government says, if you want to change your U.S. dollars into this, that's where we're gonna keep track and tax you and all that stuff. But once you get it in, you can move it and freely and do whatever you want to do with it. So
got it.
And when you go to sell, if you want to turn it back into United States dollars, they're going to gatekeep that and they're going to tax you on that. So that's once you get in, then it's a free and open market, basically.
That's kind of why I've just been taking like $50, $100 every paycheck on the 1st and 15th auto withdrawal that Coinbase allows you to buy like several different coins, and then I've got it. You just keep it. Doesn't matter what the market does because, I made the mistake in 2013. I don't want to get left behind again. And if we get to a point where you need that as an escape because of the predatory United States government, then you've got it in there, right? Like it's like having a Swiss bank account almost. Like, people, I think I have $50
bucks. You just described a marketing strategy of dollar cost averaging in. Basically, I don't have $1,000 to put in. I don't want to time the market. I can't time the market. I'm so busy. So I'm going to put $100 in from this paycheck, $100 in for the next paycheck. And if you did all the math, by whether you could time it and averaging in, it's about the same value.
Right. Perfect. All right, let's end there. Thank you all. Thank you, Vincent, for being here. We appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure to be here.
If people want to follow you, like, I don't know if you have a blog or a podcast or whatever, like if people want to get in contact with you and ask you more questions, how could they do that?
They could ask around the Discord because I am on there.
All right, sweet. Great. So go on there and we will...
His name's Adamant Butler on the Wall Discord, I believe.
All right, and you can sign up for the Wall Discord at WeAreLibertarians.com on the front page, where I'll put it in the show notes for you. Let me make a note of that just so I don't forget. All right, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Joe Biden's plan to get those crypto transactions tracked and traced, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Chris Spangle Show. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, the ad breaks are new across the entire network. So I told you early on the reason we were changing the name of We Are Libertarians to the Chris Spangle Show was so that we could build a network, basically. Like we had a network, and it was kind of like, hey, here's the We Are Libertarians show, and then like, Brian and Rimzo were on the network, but like it wasn't a network, right? So what we're doing like social media marketing doesn't work anymore. It doesn't exist. It's not going to happen for us. And in reality, we need a different way to market the show. And so we are cross-promoting across our different 13 shows, and you'll hear that. And along with, some advertising now. We're selling ads for the first time, and we are selling ads to like a YouTube ad system called MMT. And all of that is going to then fund advertising on other podcasts outside in Normie Land to say, hey, there's some libertarian shows. If you don't know what a libertarian is, come on over, check us out. And, we bought some ads on Spotify, for instance, to advertise in the sports history, news and politics, lifestyle, some of those things, health. And that's how we're going to grow the network, and that is why you're hearing ads. Longtime listeners know I never really wanted to mess with ads. I don't want to be a salesman, but the changes in how we market the show make that necessary, and it turns out that if you want to do marketing, guys, you have to pay for it. So yes. Anyways, that is why you're hearing ads on all the different shows. And please, if you want ad-free episodes of the Chris Spangle Show, go join the Wall Patreon, and you can get that there. Now, let's move on to our news block. I need to get like one of those like little sounder things, so like this. Welcome to We Are Libertarians News with your host, Chris Spangle, featuring Harry Price, Rhinehold, and Chris Gault has quit the podcast again. So Joe Biden wants to spy on American bank accounts. Oh, and I've got this. So like if we have like a COVID update, then I can do this.
Corona update.
How fun is that? All right. So just adding a little production to the show here.
Are you going to sell naming value to like our different desk?
Oh, that'd be yes, like on my day job. So yeah, like Harry Price over at the Crypto Desk, sponsored by Dashcoin.
At the Coinbase.com Crypto Desk.
Right, Rhinehold at the Kratom Desk. All right, so Joe Biden wants to spy on American bank accounts. Joe Biden's, this is from Reason Magazine, Elizabeth Nolan Brown tweeted this out, and I think she's the author. Biden tax plan would cull financial data on masses of law-abiding, tax-compliant Americans. Now, I think we talked about last week how yes, so... sorry, I got distracted. Yes, thank you, Vince. Thank you for being on, Gault. No worries about not being here. I'm just going to kick you guys out, and thank you for being on. Not right now, associate producer. So, yes, you may have seen, are you trying to peek? Okay, well, let's not do that. Can you go watch Mouse? Go watch Paw Patrol. You did do it. You're very smart. I'll turn on Paw Patrol for you in just a second. So we talked about how there were $7 trillion. So my girlfriend works overnights on Friday and Saturday nights. And so that has left us. So she's in the other room napping for an hour and a half. And that just happens to coincide with the programs because we have to go do some stuff today. So I apologize for the interruption, but there's nothing I can do about it. And she's the sweetest associate producer ever. Are you going to read that email from Tim? Thank you. So $7 trillion in... it is another one. Thank you. Can you be quiet now? Honey, you're ruining the show. Oh, you're not really ruining the show. It's okay, honey. She got sad and then I felt bad. So Joe Biden's tax plan would cull financial data on masses of law-abiding citizens. So we saw about a week or two ago that there was $6 trillion in unaccounted for taxes. And so Joe Biden has a plan to keep you in line. And so they're seeking serious snooping rights to oversee all American bank accounts and payment apps instead of promising a chicken in every pot, Chuck Grassley said. Biden's plan promises an auditor at every kitchen table. So Biden's proposal would hire 87,000 new IRS employees to be hired and go through the flow of money to and from your bank account. As it stands now, the government gets alerted to most income when payer reports it to the IRS. If someone comes into money and the payer doesn't report it to the IRS, the person paid is to report this income. So if I make income on a 1099, the 1099 goes from the business to the IRS, and then I have to also claim it and put it on my taxes. And estimates suggest that opaque income sources have a misreporting rate of 55%. It would also go into spying on PayPal and Venmo and services like that. They're also cracking down on crypto gains, and you have to pay capital gains taxes on that. My accountant asked me specifically this year if I did any crypto, and I was like, no, not last year. I have probably losses this year so far. So mainly the people, it's not going to be the millionaires and billionaires that already get audited. Like you have like a 0.20% chance of being audited or something as just a regular person making 50 to 100 grand. Like you really aren't in much danger unless Joe Biden hires these 87,000 new IRS employees. And the people who are going to be affected are babysitters and house cleaners and people peddling homemade baked goods and just regular people like you and me. The bottom line is that the IRS would have an unprecedented ability to target even the tiniest bits of unreported income. Now, this is not unsurprising, guys. Like, as the debt mounts, and that has to be paid back, they can't inflate all that away. They're, of course, going to become predatory and want to get all up in your business and get as much money as they think they deserve, because that is the nature of states, especially as they start to collapse. They start to tighten the rules and start to suck up as much income as humanly possible from its citizens to pay back for the things that they have not yet paid for. So I'm not really surprised. How about the two of you?
Yeah, not surprised that the Biden administration wants to go do this because, once if you're already taxing from inflation, might as well go ahead and get the rest of the money. I think we were actually talking about this at the Walnuts last night at Triton Brewery. We were talking about we were worried that Biden wanted to do this because this is the same administration that weaponized the IRS in the first place to go after groups back in the early of the Tea Party era. So it's like, great, let's weaponize. I wonder who the IRS people who are going to focus on more. Yes, the people going into the crypto space, the small little mom and pop shops that are just starting up, and it also is going to help discourage like small businesses to start up, because everyone who's going to start a small business, look, guess what? You're going to screw up your taxes. Everyone's going to screw up your taxes. You're going to misreport something, underreport something. You don't know you did something incorrectly because it's not very easily spread out.
Well,
Go ahead, Rhinehold.
To me, it's hilarious watching the left kind of like, so they wanted to fund the police. They want to limit the police power, and they still supported Biden, who very clearly said he wasn't going to do that. He was going to increase the police. He's going to increase the police state. And this is just another part of that. This is a part of the police state. It's how they're going to fund money. They're going to spend how much money hiring all these people to do this work, because they know they're going to get more than that out of us.
Yep.
So we're going to end up paying more. Right. So
this is like the thing that just pisses me off about last year, is because Trump would have just sailed to re-election, and we now have like without the Republicans like being fiscally conservative and sticking to the principles that come out of their mouths instead of governing a different way. It's like you now have, if Donald Trump hadn't done the stolen election nonsense, he would have won those 2 seats in Georgia, and you wouldn't have the ability for 87,000 new IRS agents to be like. It's really like, please, the right, get it together, because this is a direct consequence of all of that conspiracy mongering and nonsense from last year. It's really frustrating to see all of this. And like we all knew who Joe Biden was and what Joe Biden was. It's just that the other side, libertarians and conservatives and Republicans and, Libertarian Party, didn't offer a valid alternative in the minds of most people. And so now we're stuck with 87,000 new IRS agents potentially. So just a consequence of rhetoric and not policy being at the forefront.
Right. Yeah, but there's 87,000 people now who get a job that didn't have one before. That's going to help with the unemployment rate, right? Government benefits, going to make out with the great retirement plans, things like that. I mean, it helps some people.
All right, goodbye, Rhinehold. Thanks for being a part of the program. We've loved having you on We Are Libertarians. You've been great. You were being sarcastic, so
there's a tiny bit of sarcasm maybe hidden in there somewhere.
Yes, but we
he's not wrong. It's a great jobs program. A lot of people are going to create different jobs, and I'll stop there.
When I was growing up, is in the 70s and 80s, and basically my parents were saying, if you can get a government job, go get one, because that's going to be the most stable that you're going to get. You're going to have stability. You're going to have good benefits. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. If you just go to the post. So they were wanting me to go to the post office and apply there and go, do all these things. And it's like, this wasn't me. It wasn't how I saw myself. I didn't really like the government back then. I've kind of always been basically a libertarian. So it was just like, yeah, I see what you're saying, but that just perpetuates itself, right? And I don't want that. So
go ahead, Harry.
I was going to say, like that was like the Reddit joke. Also, like in the movie "I'm Going to Get You, Sucker," was like we showed up with all these angry black people to the government office, but it was hiring day. They walked in with pitchforks and they walked out with jobs.
Okay, so let's move on to our next topic, and this one hits a little close to home. For colleges, vaccine mandates often depend on which party is in power. So this is from the New York Times. For more than 400 colleges and universities, it is being billed as the ticket to a normal year on campus. Require all students to be vaccinated for the coronavirus before they can matriculate next fall. From just one university in March to a dozen by the first week of April, the trickle has become a tide over the past month, depending on just where students are attending school. In a divided nation, college vaccine mandates are mostly following familiar fault lines. As of this weekend, only 34, roughly 8%, are in states that voted for Trump. according to the Chronicle of Higher Education. 9 of those were added on Friday when Indiana University and its satellite campuses became a rare public university in a Republican-controlled state to mandate vaccines. Though the 400 campuses are only about 10% of the nation's roughly 4,000 colleges, the gap is likely to persist. With many colleges facing falling enrollments and financial pressures, the decision whether to require vaccinations can have huge consequences. Particularly in Republican-controlled states, college presidents are weighing a delicate equation: part safety, part politics, part peer pressure, and part economic self-interest. Indiana, a state where sheriffs in multiple counties refuse to enforce the governor's mask mandate, now has at least 14 campuses that are requiring the immunization, the most of any Republican-controlled state. Terry Hartle, Senior Vice President of the American Council on Education, said, if you are a public college president, getting on the wrong side of a governor or state legislature can be career-ending action. Because the FDA has authorized only the emergency use of Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson vaccines, many universities have added a caveat to try to protect themselves from liability. Their mandates are contingent on one of the vaccines obtaining final regulatory approval, but they would allow students to return to campus after receiving any of them. Now, this is so as I posted this about IUPUI, my school, on my Facebook page, a load of libertarians were saying, but it's not FDA approved. And I would say, when the fuck did libertarians ever care about FDA approval? Get your shit together. Quit being impure. Now, IUPUI said, for students, they will see their class registration canceled, their Crimson Card access terminated, access to IU systems like Canvas and email terminated, and will not be allowed to participate in any on-campus activity. Faculty and staff who choose not to meet the requirements will no longer be able to be employed by IU. Working remotely and not meeting the COVID-19 vaccine requirement is not an option. Exemptions will be limited to a very narrow set of criteria, including medical exemptions with physician documentation and documented religious exemptions. Now, and Indiana has in part of their code that they cannot actually legally do this, but so I don't know what they're thinking. But my guess is that Governor Holcomb, who has been he's been more like Governor DeWine in Ohio than he has been Ron DeSantis. DeWine and Holcomb are certainly not Whitmer and Newsom and New York, Cuomo. Like, they're not on that spectrum. Like, in reality, here in Indiana, we have not really had our lives affected. From March to June, it was lockdowns, right? But for the rest of the time, it was like, we're locked down. Wink, wink, wink. So, it's basically all open now. There's still some capacity requirements for bars and restaurants in Indianapolis, but it's certainly nothing like Brian Nichols has experienced in Philadelphia, for instance. And now that, we're like, here's the thing about, like, when the lockdown protests didn't have any epidemiological consequences, I went, that's interesting. Okay. And then when the George Floyd protests came about and epidemiologists were saying it was okay to go out, I went, all right, this seems like a lot of bullshit now. And nothing spiked from those. And then the Super Bowl happened and nothing really happened there. And then Indianapolis flew in 110,000 people for the Final Four, and we had 23 new cases. And I am going this afternoon to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where next Sunday they will hold the largest gathering of human beings in one place since COVID began in the world. And believe me, they're all nervous about it, but if history is any indication, everything's going to be fine. And I would just say to my friends who are very nervous about COVID, yes, you should take it seriously. You should consider getting the vaccine. I'm not against the vaccine. I think it's wonderful that my grandfather gets to see my grandmother. All of my family has gotten the vaccine. I have not yet gotten the vaccine. Why is that? Not because I'm an anti-vaxxer, but because I had COVID. And everyone who's had COVID that has gotten the vaccine in my life has gotten sick from it. So I'm not really in a hurry to get sick. And B, the next doctor's appointment that I can get scheduled with my doctor is September. And so IUPUI, the place that I went back to school 2 semesters ago, said if you don't have the vaccinations, both of them by July, the middle of July, you can't come to school here. And even online. And so instead of working at my pace to think about what I want to do with my body and my health, they're telling me my business is no longer wanted. Now, of course, they ask that you get the flu vaccine every year. The flu vaccine is not the same thing as the COVID vaccine, right? So I know that the technology existed before the vaccines were rolled out earlier this year. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a brand new disease, a new vaccine. And I personally don't want to be like 5 years in with a booster shot every single year and they go, oops, sorry about that. We just discovered this new thing. I want to take my time. Rhinehold, you're probably in a different place because you have much different parameters because of the people that you care for, and you love the protection that the vaccine, I assume you have gotten it. I don't know. And you don't have to answer if you don't want to because we respect HIPAA here at the We Are Libertarians podcast network. But like all along, your COVID restrictions and factors have been much different than mine and much different than Harry's, you know, and people like my dad, who's in his 60s, who works at construction sites with a lot of people who are not going to get vaccinated, who are have not ever worn masks, and is worried about COVID. He got the vaccine for his health. My brother too, right? So it's like, but my mom, who's been in the ICU, got really, 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 really sick from it because she had a lot of antibodies, right? So I'm taking my sweet time. I'm like I said, I really bristled at this and am going to switch to a different school because that my situation was never considered. They're just treating me like I'm an anti-vaxxer. They're just treating me like they don't want my business and they don't care. They don't even care about their employees. And like if let's say 5% of the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people that work for IU in their workforce balk at this, let's say it's 5%, 10%, 20%, are they really going to fire en masse all of those people and then completely disrupt their services in the fall? How many people dropped their classes yesterday? Like it was explained to me by an advisor at my school, don't worry about your GPA. They really need the tuition right now because the business of colleges is really struggling. So how many people are just not going back to school? Is that 10%? Is that 50% of their enrollment drops in the fall in this red state? I'll be really interested to see what happens, but I dropped my class for the fall yesterday because I'm not going to be able to meet their requirement of July. And people will say, oh, but you have to have vaccines to go to college. I haven't had to. I've been taking online classes, and I don't really have, like I haven't gotten boosters for tetanus. Maybe I should, but like I haven't had to get vaccinated for other things. Like there's a very clear control aspect to this that is different with this vaccine. This is the thing that you're supposed to do, and we're going to force you to do it because we have decided this is what's best for you. And I know it's a private institution, but that doesn't mean that I can't just walk away and go find somebody else to do business with. I really like IUPUI. I really love the IU system. I really want to finish my degree with them. But I think this is a big miss, and I'll be curious to see how the legislature manages it. Am I just an outlier? You know, I'm sure there are plenty of people that go to these IU schools that are like even more extreme on this scale than I am. I'm skeptical, right? I'm skeptical about everything. I am not. I own Peter Hotez's book about why the anti-vax movement is wrong. Like I've shared it with people. Like, you know, I'm not in that crowd, but to be treated like that just makes you go, I don't know. If you're going to make me choose what culture I live in, then I guess I'm going with them because I'm not with you because of your, like, this is the mindset. And are we really going to live in a world where, hold on just a second.
We live in a world of applause.
I mean, the reality is, are you going to, you have to get a booster every year. That was said today. It's in the paperwork. You have to get a COVID booster every year. So if you get the vaccine, are you going to go get that booster every single year? And are they going to require you to show your booster every single year? How many different places are you going to have to carry your vaccination card around and show?
Right.
Like, how many years are we willing to do that? Like, are you willing to do that for the next 10 years, for the rest of your life, for the next 6 months? Like, where's the line? Like, a mask, I'm fine wearing the mask because it's a temporary thing. We were always going to get to the place we're at now where people are not wearing their masks. They're done with it, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is that the pandemic had an expiration date. And we have arrived at that expiration date where the world is about to go back to normal. And if you want to pretend that this is still March 2020 and April 2020, you are about to get left behind. And that is if you are on the anti-lockdown side or the pro-lockdown side. Like, the world is about to go back to normal, and they are not going to want to ever talk about COVID or the pandemic again. But what happens when the vaccine rolls out for kids and every school system starts mandating it? And you've got 50% of this country, or 40 or 30 or 20 that are not willing to vaccinate their kids and just are going to drop out and do homeschool. The culture wars around vaccines are not over. They're just about to get started for when the COVID vaccine is required by schools. Mark my words on that. And I think, you don't have to be considered a nut job to look at the way that this is being rolled out and basically shoved down our throats and socially engineered to go, how long are we willing to accept that social engineering? How long are we willing to participate? How long are we willing to, like, nobody's ever asked me if I've gotten the HPV vaccine, which I did because I didn't want to. I'm joking. Nobody ever asked me if I got my flu shot. Nobody ever asked, like, how long are we willing to talk about our medical health with total strangers and coworkers and everybody else? How long are we willing to show that little card? Right. Yeah. So, I mean, how long? I mean, you guys tell me. I mean, I'm not like, you go talk to most libertarians about me and my reaction to COVID. It's like, I was never for lockdowns. I was never for government action. I was always for staying home initially, gather evidence, see what was acceptable risk for you and your family, work with other people. But where we're headed is exactly what a lot of those folks are saying, the hardcore folks, right? Like, I don't necessarily think a lot of them, it didn't matter if it was 1918, they weren't going to play along, right? Like, but like, I think a lot of the country's starting to sit here and go, how long? How much longer? How invasive are you going to be before I have to start pushing back? Because I don't want to push back on you, but I will. Harry?
Well, yeah, and you also see, like, the goodwill that has been brought up for going after the anti-vax movement, which is going to, for some reason, the biggest fear is to pick up momentum with people who just don't want that. Because yes, as most libertarians,
you're going to push people more and more in that direction if you apply force. If you do what Ohio did, where they did the lottery and 28% spike in vaccinations occurred because they incentivized people to enter a lottery. That's a good way to apply social pressure to achieve a goal. Yeah. Telling you can't ever go to college again at my university, and the largest state-run university, is over. It's the wrong way to go. It's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, and if you could just cancel my ability to go to the college, could you take my student loan debt with it?
Right. I've spent $4,000 working with this school that does not want me to go. So did I waste $4,000? Am I done with college? Or like fuck you. Yeah. I'll just go to an online school.
Correct. And after this whole, this last year, it has proved to also a lot of parents that, you can homeschool. This is, homeschooling can be difficult, but you also notice that it's also easier with the community, and you build that community of other family members to help do the homeschooling and unschooling project, or go to a private school, because as more and more people are wanting to do something different, hey, there's going to be funds and everything going to be available.
Yeah.
It's the other thing is what I was trying to say is that there are people out there that aren't libertarians, or people out there that want real FDA approval. I'm not one of them, but there are those out there that are going on like, no, I wanted to go through all the hoops before I put this thing in me. That was for an emergency. I freaking get it. We got to this point, but I actually want real approval. There are people out there that want that too, and right now, you're right. It is in that weird state of we're going to force you to do that. And I bring it to like a lot of the conversation you can have with people is like I have some friends who are trans, and it is at that same thing of that same argument. Well, let me see your card. Let me see. Well, how trans are you? Are you 50% trans? Are you 20% trans? Are you on this aspect? It's like, why do you care about my medical history or what's in my over genitals or pants I have? It's the exact same thing with the freaking, when it comes down to the like, what focusing through my veins. Did I do my due diligence as a good person for your argument that you want? It's just, it's the bathroom argument all over again, but instead of bathrooms, it's vaccines.
Right. And it's much more personal, and it's going to involve children, and it's going to get messy. I mean, Rhinehold, you have been, I don't want to say you've been on the more liberal side. I feel like that's unfair, but I think you've definitely been, because you never advocated for lockdowns, but you were like, this is a serious thing. Like, you should personally take it seriously. I mean, a lot of us did here. I mean, where do you come down on this? Because it is a private organization, but it feels predatory.
So the private organization has every right to try to protect the people that it's serving. So a college, is a collection point of a lot of people. So they are obviously concerned about being a vector for getting people who come to use their service and getting them sick and potentially killing them. I don't think that there's a lot of fear based around we're going to start requiring this, and this is going to be.
Let me stop you there, okay? Because if you are going to a physical location like a college, and by the way, I mean, Dr. Fauci said this week that 40 to 50% of CDC and FDA employees aren't vaccinated yet with it. Like, which is kind of like a mind-blowing number that would be that much. Now, that was not a statistical figure, right? He was just like guesstimating in a hearing. And of course, the right took it and ran with it and made him, they're afraid to get the vaccine. It's not what he said, but still, it's kind of a crazy thing. But if you're in a physical location like university, especially in a town like Bloomington where it's kind of closed off, like Bloomington, you can't require everybody in the town get the vaccine. And the people that you're interacting with on campus, by and large, are vaccinated. And so the percentage of people that are vaccinated to unvaccinated is incredibly high, enough that intermingling with people is not going to have a significant R-naught value. Like, scientifically, there isn't a ton of sense here, right? Like, so I push back a little bit on the idea that I get that they are trying to protect their employees and protect their people and protect the minority of people who have issues, who have problems, and but it seems like an overcautious step in my mind. I mean, what do you say to that?
It is an overcautious step, and I think that you're going to see a handful of universities, like you said, they're going to go down this route. They're going to get their hands slapped, and they're going to get pushed back on, and they're going to change their tune. It wasn't that long ago. I can remember when it happened, so even though I am old, this isn't horribly long ago. You had to carry around an immunization card. It was not something that is just thought of today. Right. So this is something we used to do. We didn't do it. We don't do it anymore. Why? Because we kind of moved past it. We're going to end up moving past this too. The problem is that you still have places. I don't know if you know what's going on in India right now, but it is a shit show over there right now concerning COVID and number of people dying. It is a mess. So there's
but
still
they also have a completely
about
different standard of living in the majority of the country.
I know. It's all different, it's individualized. We should be individualizing all this, but you also have to understand that not everybody's going to agree with how you view things. So
no, that's
have to
incorrect.
Allow other people to try.
Fuck that.
Yeah. we have to allow them to try and kind of figure their own way. IUPUI, I think they're making a horrible mistake. I think if they'd have come out and said, if you're going to be on campus, we want you vaccinated. If you're going to do remote learning, if you're going to do all online, you don't need it. What's wrong with that? That's a good compromise. But they don't want that because they want. I don't know why they don't.
They want no compromise,
crazy.
And I think that's knowing the public space as well as I do thanks to my past jobs. They're taking a hard stance right now as a negotiating tactic. They're going to see how many unenrollments they get. Like, my class dropped yesterday. They're going to see how many employees they have to fire in early August, and then they're going to walk it back without the headlines, right? They got into the New York Times, right? So they got the headlines, and they made it. They made it clear.
They may have to make a headline to get back into it, though. If they're going to reverse it in order to regain some of that loss, they're going to have to make that a headline too. So they're going to have to do something somewhere to make that happen. Now, it won't be as national because it's not. The problem is we again politicized healthcare to the point where nobody will talk about the rational, logical, scientific based parts of all of this. It's all my side versus your side, which is horrible. But what they're doing is they're going to get their hand slapped. And that's how libertarians kind of want society to work, isn't it? That we all just sort of, we try things, we push this here, we push that there. This works, this doesn't work. We get our hand slapped on this. And eventually it all kind of works to the betterment of everybody. And I think you're going to see those edges coming up. The problem is too many people are focusing on the edge cases.
Yeah.
And going, see, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to control you. I don't see this as being a thing about control. I don't see in a year from now, or maybe a year and a half from now, that we're going to be requiring boosters and passports and all that stupid stuff is going to be gone.
Well, most employers are not. Yeah,
control things. If they want to control, if they want to track you, I think people are talking about, they're putting my wife came to me yesterday and was talking about how she had seen a video where they're putting magnets inside of the virus and it's in the arm, and you can put a magnet up there and it'll stick and you can see it. They're not doing that. They have no incentive to do that. Everybody voluntarily gives everybody that information anyway these days. So why would they even bother trying to do that?
Here's where I would push back on you. Okay. I do not believe in a top-down system of, I don't believe in like the cabal stuff, right? Like everything is grounds up. But I do think that there are people who are sitting around going, if you don't do this, F you, you're not a good citizen anyways. We don't want you here. So if we can do this and force enough people to get more vaccines, I do think control plays into it. I think that there are like 4,200 people meeting and going, we're going to create a vaccine that controls the world. I don't believe in that stuff. But I do think that the type of personality that probably runs a college has less of a problem controlling individual liberties and individual choices versus the needs of the community than we do, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, look at Purdue. Purdue's got a different.
Well, they're the outlier
of that.
I mean, they got Mitch Daniels.
Well, are they though? But I mean, there's a lot of colleges around the country that are doing that. That's what I'm saying is I think we're talking edge case again. There are people who are trying to pressure society into doing what they think is right. But libertarians do the same thing. The right does the same thing heavily. I mean, we're the only ones who don't try to codify it into actual law. I mean, the left and the right do that constantly. That's what they fight about. That's what the culture war is who's controlling people.
Yeah, it's decree and consent, right? You decree something and then see how many people consent, and if you get pushback, you take it back, and if you don't, then you go on with it, right? So I think there has to be a point where even if it makes you look nutty, even if it doesn't totally make sense, because I do understand their rationality and I do understand what they're trying to do in protecting, all right, well, why does Spangle get to come to college when the person with the respiratory illness doesn't get to, right? I get that thinking of protecting the minority when the risk to that person is much greater than my risk of getting the vaccine, right? So that is the calculation that they're making. But I do think at a certain point, you have to push back and say, I do not consent to your decree. This is not how I want things to function, because so much of our lives are now molded in the rhetorical space, in public space, in public argument, and this is the argument that many people make against democracy, is that you are ruled by the whims of that public conversation, which is often propagandized, as opposed to the Star Chamber of Learned Men sitting down having rational conversations, which is, I think more egregious than democracy. We are not monarchists here at the We Are Libertarians Network, but So I do think there has to come a point where even if it doesn't make sense, yes, Facebook does have a right to take our group away. Yes, Facebook has a right to do these things. But at a certain point, you have to push back on it and go, I know you have the right to do these things, but I don't agree with it because I want you to have that market signal that this is not appropriate, that this is too far. And so then the decree gets modified and it's a negotiation over time. And I think this is a great example with these colleges of exactly why you say, like, I don't want a vaccination card. I don't want to have to sit here and I think a person's body and their choices with it is incredibly important. And I think that trying to create eventually, if you don't push back against the decree, then you end up creating two segmented societies where we're heading already. And I think that's very dangerous for the country. And that's really why I look at this and I see issues with it, especially when, as a student at this school, I'm telling you, they don't have the same levels of enforcement and consequences for the other vaccinations. They just don't. And so they're making a big show of this. And so if you want to make a big show of it, let's have the conversation. But I'm going to tell you what I think.
They're trying to figure that if they make this proclamation, they may get more people coming to the school because they know it's a safe place to be.
Sure.
Right. They don't have to be around people who are, and their part of their concern is that it's in Indiana. So they're afraid a lot of the population who go there is going to be coming from other parts of the state and haven't been vaccinated. They're going to start spreading stuff around because we don't like government and we don't like people telling us what to do and we're all anti-vax. So that's where their thinking is that if we make this proclamation, we'll lose some people, but we're going to gain more in the end.
That's a fair assessment too. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen that way, but that's what their thinking is. And I think they're going to get their hands slapped. I think they're going to push back. And we should be vocal on anybody who does, like when Facebook did what they did, we should be vocal to them and tell them we disagree with it. The problem is that too many people are vocalizing that in the wrong way by threatening government, which then makes them retreat back into, this is our rights. Let's get the lawyers involved and let's get all the politics involved. And I think that's the wrong way to do it. I think the best way to do it is to make the case and be vocal about it, get and collect people who agree with you and go after that, but do it in a way that's not hugely threatening other than, hey, we won't use your service anymore. Right.
Yeah. And I'd also say
not using the service anymore is going to be enough to get a lot of people to kind of push back or at least bring out their, change their tone a little bit.
But I also think, like, I'm someone who has antibodies. So, but there's no third way there, right? Like there was going to be on the passport that they were going to do where you were validated. All they would do is they would check against it and get it back. Yes, he's good. No, he's not. Right. And that validation could have been both. Either they had the vaccine or they had the antibodies or they had both or whatever. They could do antibody checks and they could do all of that stuff and then report back a green or a red. And that's what the passport application was supposed to do, right? And the privately created one that they were going to do. A lot of people push back on that. It's just like they all push back on masks, even though masks they were complaining that everything was closed and we wanted it all open again. Well, masks are the best way to do that, to allay fears and get people out going again. Putting your mask on would have made that a lot quicker and a lot less painful, but you couldn't do that because it was it was just a mindset. It was politicized at that point. So they're doing the same thing here with the vaccines, where it's like, I don't want the vaccine because the government's telling me to get the vaccine, blah, blah, blah. And it's fine. It's your decision to make. But if you want a certain outcome to happen, there are certain ways to do that to make it easier than others. Yeah. So for instance,
and I still
go ahead, finish your thought.
I still believe with it. Like I said at the beginning of the year, I said by springtime, a lot of us are just going to be going without masks and everything's going to be fine. And we'll move back to our normals. And within a year, I don't think anybody's going to be hardly even talking about COVID.
Yeah.
But, and I think we're seeing that play out, and I think you have people who are seeing that slip away and realizing that they had invested so much political power
right,
and political future into that, either side of that argument, that they're trying to hold on. So they're making louder screams. They're making more noise. They're trying to continually divide people.
There's a lot of people on either sides of this issue that made their entire identity or their brand about lockdowns and COVID and you need to wear masks or you're wearing a face diaper and it's sort of like the Bulwark. Like I really enjoyed the Bulwark podcast when Trump was in office, but now that we're months out from Trump not being in office, they can't get off of Trump. They can't pivot, right? Like they can't, people get so tied to a narrative that if they feel that they bifurcate from what they were talking about when that issue was hot, that they're betraying the cause somehow. And I just think it just, I said early on in the pandemic, we should reevaluate this every 2 weeks. You should not legislate for the next 5 years, because remember, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And okay, all right, the big spike, we need to not overwhelm the hospitals. I'll stay home. I'll work from home. I get that. And then once the hospitals never were, my mom's hospital was overrun for about a month. Once we get past that and I check in, I'm like, it's like late May, early June. I'm like, how's the hospital? Oh, we only have a couple patients, but it's okay. We're all right. Now we're in a different phase, right? But the people who are, and I think this has partly been Fauci's problem, is that Fauci no matter what Todd Starnes on Fox News says, like he has, he'll be asked a question and he'll be like, well, it could be this, it could be that. Like that's the worst political messaging ever. Because you're right, this has been political. Like he's telling you, well, it could be this, it could be that, right? Like it was it was horrifying when Michael Osterholm that 700,000 people worldwide were going to die. When he said this on Joe Rogan in March, 700,000 people are probably going to die in the next year from this. Mm-hmm. Well, we did almost that in America, right? Like, when Fauci said there could be 2 million, that we could have 100,000, 200,000 deaths. I remember saying, like, when I think we said it here, like Trump saying 100,000 people dying is acceptable was outrageous to me. Mm-hmm. But now looking back, like, because the CDC didn't do testing right, the outcome was never going to change. Like, no matter like the lockdowns, Florida versus Indiana versus Philadelphia versus California, like those numbers aren't all that different. And so the lockdowns didn't work, and we can see it because Florida can be compared to California. But there are people that are still married to that narrative of we need you to wear a mask, we need you to double mask, we need you to not go out if you're vaccinated, we need you to do this. They can't get out of that even though the numbers have changed. And there's on the other side, it's like, it's the same thing. And I just think, every 2 weeks we should have had a conversation about where are we at, what are we doing, how do we adjust, how do we, that's sort of how I approached all of it in my own personal life. Like, where's my personal risk at? Before I went and saw my family at Christmas, we didn't go anywhere for a full month because I didn't know. I didn't have a rapid test available to me. I didn't go anywhere. And I feel like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the way that they're handling it, I have no issue, right? So if you're in the media and you want to go to the pits and to the garages and other places around their facility as a media member, they're not going to force you to get the vaccine. Like if you're Jeremiah Morrill, you got to have a vaccine just to go in, right? But if you're working, you've got to have either the vaccine and show your card or a rapid test. And then you can do your job, but you got to get a rapid test. Like, to me, that's a reasonable third way, right? Where they've found a solution where they know that they can't force. Like, I'm not vaccinated yet. I'm going out there today. They can't force me. I need to do my job. My employer doesn't want to force me. I haven't talked to them about it, but I'm sure they don't want to because of liability reasons, which is why most employers are not, enforcing this. Because God forbid somebody gets the vaccine, they have side effects from it, and then they're liable, right?
Right.
So the Motor Speedway found a reasonable alternative. Okay, we'll buy a bunch of rapid tests, then we'll keep the spread as low as possible. And if you test positive, you need to go, right? I'm totally okay with that. I want to know. I want to be informed about me being a carrier, and I need to get the hell away from them. So, as opposed to we're going to fire you and you can't come here anymore, right? So I don't know. I look at it and I think everybody just, it's like, Harry, back in the day of this program, what was the one issue we never talked about back in the day? The A word.
Oh no, I'm not.
Yeah, see, we didn't even.
That's the third rail.
We wouldn't even say abortion on the program. You would never debate. We it was the one thing we never talked about, and at the news talk station, it was the one topic Abdul would not touch, right? And then somewhere, social media, 2011 or 12, every single issue is now the emotion of the abortion debate from the 90s and 2000s. Mm-hmm. Like that was the one thing that people could have a reasonable conversation about a bunch of different things, everything really, except abortion. And then emotions just were attached to it as too politicized, and everything is abortion now. And it's just like it's been an overwhelming year, and I think people are just ready to check out and move on. So finish your thought, Harry, and then we're going to move on to the last story.
Oh, the only thing I would also wanted to say is when you was watching the ICU, especially in Indiana, they did a very good job of telling you the state of all the hospitals,
right.
Majority of the hospitals, what was going on, how many were using for COVID, how many things were open. And the weird thing that was happening, because everything was shut down, the ICU beds, majority of the time, was occupied by people who were driving at high rates of speed and crashing in their cars on 465.
Yeah.
That was the frightening thing, because did I get out on the highway and drive fast for the no? Heck yeah, I did, but allegedly on video games. But the thing is, what you notice is that the case here in Indiana is just and also had the reverse effect that started happening when you notice a lot of the rural hospitals weren't getting a lot of people going in there because they shut down all the non-emergency services. It's even the dentist office I go to now. I got an amazing deal on my teeth there because they just needed someone to actually go in there. They didn't care,
right?
So
yeah. So all right, next subject, and we do put timestamps in the show notes. So if you ever just see what we talked about, you can fast forward on there. All of our show notes are always PDF'd. Got some Bitcoin show notes that Sam Schultz put together for us. So if you want to just quickly read, then we do offer that. Now, next story. ICE to stop detaining immigrants at 2 county jails under federal investigation. I want you to hear the Nazi shit that is going on at some of these detention facilities. Is why I selected this story. So the Biden administration has decided to stop detaining immigrants at a pair of county jails facing federal probes in Georgia and Massachusetts, calling the decision an important first step in broader review of the nation's sprawling network of immigration jails. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Thursday ordered U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to immediately terminate the contract with the Bristol County Sheriff's Office in Massachusetts and to transfer the few remaining detainees elsewhere. He also directed ICE to rescind an agreement with the Sheriff's Office that trained deputies to screen inmates arrested for crimes to see if they are also eligible for deportation. Mayorkas also directed ICE to, as soon as possible, sever its contracts with the Irwin County Detention Facility in rural Georgia. A more complicated endeavor because the facility is county-owned and not county-owned, but run by a private contractor. Bristol is holding 70 detainees out of nearly 200 beds. Irwin has 114 detainees out of 100 beds. Both county jails are also under federal investigation for complaints of abuses against immigrants, allegations that remain open and unresolved, and those factored into Mayorkas' decision, the official said. Hey, hold on. Why does she waits till I'm reading and then yells for change to Paw Patrol or Peppa? And his changes are having measurable impacts. Immigration arrests in the interior of the United States have plunged by more than half, records show. Under Trump, it was 50,000 detainees per day. The The Bristol County Sheriff's Office came under state and federal investigation a year ago when staff members deployed pepper balls, a stun grenade, and canines against immigrant detainees amid a dispute filed over coronavirus testing. Irwin is facing federal investigations from a former nurse filed a whistleblower complaint alleging that women held at the facility were subjected to unwanted I've never seen one, so I don't know what the word is. Including hysterectomies. It was not voluntary, just gave them hysterectomies, and they told them later that they had given them hysterectomies. They urged DHS to terminate its agreement with Bristol. She said some detainees who had refused to submit to coronavirus testing and isolation threw plastic chairs at staff members, smashed walls, and attempted to barricade the unit with tables and trash bins. Haley said she did not condone the detainees' behavior, but said the sheriff's office used disproportionate force on detainees after the disturbance had largely subsided. So they punished them, basically. The 3 detainees had to be taken to the hospital, and a 4th had to be revived by chest compressions, but she said she was not taken to the emergency room. I mean, the hysterectomy thing sent me into a rage. Like, immigrants are human beings, and they're people, and they have all their NAP is not to be violated. You are not to involuntarily give people hysterectomies. It doesn't matter if they're not Americans or not. They're human beings and they have rights, and that is one of the most messed up stories I've heard in a long time, Rhinehold.
Well, it is, but it also is a story that I heard 9 months ago, when all this was kind of going down and there was a big surge and everything at the border a year ago. I heard all of these stories that the forced hysterectomies were going on, the abuse, the uninvestigated abuse, the constant the sexually transmitted diseases because of the guards taking advantage of the immigrants, that sort of thing. And I always ask the question, because I have this conversation with people sometimes, like, well, they're not Americans, so they don't have the rights that we have. I'm like, what part of inalienable rights do you guys not understand? Inalienable means that right doesn't come from you by a government. A government can't dictate whether you have or don't have that right. It's yours no matter what. So where do we get off thinking that those people coming across the border or asking for asylum have technically violated no laws in any way, just seeking asylum? We decide that they don't get the basic inalienable human rights that we talked about. The founding of this country was on the core tenet of why we created this country to begin with, was the basis of that thought process that everybody, no matter who you were, had rights. And remember, at the beginning of the country, not everybody was a citizen. You know, there was a very limited path to citizenship, and citizenship was reserved to people to be involved in the running of the government and decisions that were being made. And they wanted people who were invested to do that. But everybody had an inalienable right to life, an inalienable right to all things. Now, there's a lot of hypocrisy with that, with the slavery thing and everything that was going on at the time too. But I think we should be trying to get better at this, of what we promised and what we envision this country to be, and not get worse. So I just want to make sure we try to improve all the time. And hearing stories like this and reading about it and seeing it happen and hearing people try to push back on it and defend it, just, it's so frustrating in that regard.
Yeah, it's where the Constitution gets a lot of its power, is that it has no delineation line. Like, it doesn't stop at the imaginary border, which is the United States. Rhinehold's completely correct. Like, if you believed in the words written on that parchment of the Constitution, it doesn't stop with the U.S. It's everyone. Everyone has these rights. Everyone has the right to counsel. They all have these rights. Thanks, Ryan. It's just, yeah, it's that every time I see, it's like when they're saying they're immigrants, it's just like, do you even know what you're saying? You know, that's. You know, it's, if you ever had to flee this country, and that means, what rights do you think you have?
It's not just it's not just the bar. It's like not just the not living up to the promise of America. It's barbarism. Like, it's basic decency, like giving women hysterectomies. I mean, just like you're trying to prevent that race from spreading. You know, it's just like it's eugenicist, and whoever was behind that should be put in jail. I mean, it just so gross to me. So we are not going to have a 3-hour show. We're just going to end right here at 2.5. Longest show in a long time. It's not our longest, which I think was like 6 hours or 4 hours. But a long show, but we had a lot to talk about, a lot to get out, and we thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Rhinehold. We appreciate it. Hold on, hun. Just a second. We'll figure. I gotta go. So I got to talk to this child. So she's lost patience, and I'm sure so many of you have as well. So thank you so much for joining us here on the show.